You said this place couldn't break you. That's what she said. Let's see.
You're so strong. You're so strong. Just no. I know.
Along the shore, the cloud waves break. The twin suns sink beneath the lake. The shadows lengthen in Carcosa. Strange is the night where black stars rise, and strange moons circle through the skies. But stranger still is lost Carcosa. Songs that the Hyades shall sing, where flap the tatters of the king, must die unheard in dim Carcosa. Song of my soul, my voice is dead. Die thou, unsung, as tears unshed shall dry and die in lost Carcosa.
And welcome welcome all to a very special edition of the Fromville Hour. Not our usual night, but we are going to have a lot of fun nonetheless as we dive into some season 4 predictions and in particular just try to figure out who exactly is this mysterious new character known as the Man in Yellow. And of course, what role is he ultimately going to play in season 4 and beyond? There's been a pretty interesting discussion developing, at least in my comment section, in terms of whether or not this Man in Yellow is going to be the main villain, the big bad, the end all big all. Is this the main threat that they're going to be up against? Seems like some people think he is, and some people think maybe he's only a steward of the main villain, and we have yet to meet the big bad. So that's going to be something interesting. We will definitely dive into that tonight as well. But welcome one, welcome all. And tonight we are joined by a special guest star, PM Philosophy. You guys know her. I'm sure you guys love her already. If you haven't subscribed to her channel yet, definitely give her a sub. The link to her channel is in the description. Welcome, PN. Are you ready to dive into some of the madness that is From and the King in Yellow?
Oh, of course. Thank you so much for having me. And yes, let's go on this journey. It's epic. By the way, that intro was amazing.
Awesome. Thank you. I found a really good audiobook version of the King in Yellow. So I figured that first poem is so iconic, you know, when it comes to Carcosa, the King in Yellow, just all about the whole mythos behind Hastur. So I grabbed that and I thought this will be perfect to add to the intro for today. Very fitting for what we're going to be diving into, I thought. So thank you. Appreciate that. And of course, you guys know him by now. You'll love him by now. If you don't, and you definitely should not be in this chat because we got Lord Ravener with us as well. My pal, my partner. Welcome, my friend. How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Can't complain. Things are looking up. I tell you, man, that is a really interesting book, the King in Yellow. I still recommend
weird,
people
right?
to pick it up. Yeah, I mean, if you like audiobook version, pick it up. And it's so, I mean, it's, you know, you can get the paperback for, you know, between $7 and $11 off Amazon. And it isn't, I was laughing. I was a little bit, I got, you know, I'll admit I got a little bit arrogant because I looked and the page count was like 179 pages. I was like, man, I'll breeze through this in a day. But man, the print is small. But not only that, it wasn't really the way I like to read. You know, I don't like to read fast. I like to read, you know, kind of like, you know, immerse myself in the world. And that is, you can definitely see how Chambers had an influence on Lovecraft because they both write in that. You know, there's something about the people that wrote in 1895 and the first couple decades of the 20th century because they write in such a florid way, a very elaborate and kind of a beautiful way, but it's heavy. It really makes you sit there and think about it. You can't just breeze through, or you're liable to miss a lot of stuff. And I could really see how this was. I don't know if it got a critical acclaim at the time, but I could definitely see how, it must have been a mind f, like a kind of like a Twilight Zone of the early 20th
Mm,
century kind of thing, of the Victorian era, essentially, because it was almost a roadmap of madness. Kind of, you could really see this guy losing his mind, and I love the through thread of the play, The King in Yellow. That's like everybody who got their hands on this thing essentially lost
mm,
it at one point or another. So it was super cool,
yeah.
man. It was a super cool book, and I'm still, I admitted, earlier I didn't get all the way through it in time for the show, but
Mm,
thankfully before the show you said that you don't have to have all of this, because it is a series of short stories as well.
yeah.
They're just short stories. It's not like one continuous thing. So I do have the gist of what was going on though. So yeah, man. Anybody who got their hands on the book or on the play, The King in Yellow, in the book, the short stories, they all started losing it. All came unglued.
That's right. I
And that's
really
what's
like the point that you made about the time period, because that's a great point. During this time period, being insane was not the norm. Now we all kind of admit to our sanity not being quite there. And you really couldn't say such like strange things or come up with books like this. They really it wasn't normal to talk about um seeing things or believing in things that were dark. It wasn't the norm. And so I thought it was very brave that
mm,
Lovecraft, all of the others authors really went into madness. What is it to be mad, and how do you get there? Is it a destination? And the world that they invented is just vivid and perfect, and it almost drives you insane trying to read and make
it
sense of it,
does.
right?
It does kind of almost instill a little bit of that in the reader as well, where yes, you can clearly see that, and like you mentioned, Ravidar, the similarities and the influence that Lovecraft took from from Robert Chambers and from Ambrose Bierce as well, and the early kind of gothic horror writers of that time. Very prevalent. You can just see they have super similar writing styles. But yes, it does kind of instill a little bit of that feeling where you as the reader almost feel like you're going mad as these characters are going mad. You're going on this journey with them to discover this kind of forbidden cosmic eldritch knowledge that it just feels like you shouldn't even be knowing. I always kind of equate it to one of those things, and I've had some movies that have given me this feeling every once in a while, but nowhere near as much as this kind of cosmic horror genre does, where it feels like it's something you shouldn't be reading, kind of thing. And I got that
Mhm.
feeling watching the movie The Witch, that came out a few years
Oh,
ago
that
from
was a
Robert
good one.
Eggers. Yeah, it was just the tone of it, the atmosphere, the tone, the aesthetic, just everything about that movie, the music, the score. I just kept feeling like this is something I should not be watching. This is something that humans shouldn't be watching, and it does instill that little bit of fear within you as you're watching it, as you're watching or reading it. So this is a really fun genre for me.
Yeah,
Well, there
yeah.
we go. Jeremy's afraid of witches.
I mean, Witches from the Witch movie, yes. I mean that'll run me up a tree faster than anything else. I'll face down a pack of White Walkers before that. Any day. Give me 10 smileys before one of those witches from that movie, The Witch.
Yeah, and
Super
that was
Yeah,
creepy.
that.
but
Yeah, that.
therein lies the first connection to From. So what you just mentioned, one of the interviews that the writers of From did early on, 2022, they mentioned, or 23, I think, they mentioned that they wanted the viewer to have the same questions and that the characters and From have, to be going through this journey. And we have seen it because as a fandom, we are insane with questions. We wait for every episode, and every episode we have more questions than answers. And it's almost like being lost and From itself. So therein lies the first connection of The King in Yellow and From, which is this idea of not being able to get any answers to the questions that you
Mm.
believe that you need them to escape this place.
Yeah. I know The Witch, man. It had there's a lot of and actually there in King in Yellow there was a lot of paranoia. And
Yes.
say the story was going to be 15 pages, just for example, they'd spend 5 pages establishing the world in the eyes of the guy that that's the main character of that story, and then bit by bit little cracks would appear and you're like, wait, did I read this correctly? Am I interpreting this correctly? What exactly? And then bit by bit you see the pieces fall away and it's like, no, this guy is absolutely batshit. So nothing is what it appears, but it puts you in the position of doubting yourself. I know exactly what you're saying. And yeah, and The Witch, that was another good one. As you went through too, you're like, well, wait a minute, what angle are they taking? Is there even a witch at all, or what the hell is going on here? One by one, is this, I was like, what is really going on? But yeah, that Robert Eggers, he's really, as
Oh
far as
man.
tonally, the movies that he's been putting out, the Northman, that was another great one
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
him. Very strange though,
The
yeah.
Lighthouse.
Oh,
The
The
Lighthouse is a
Lighthouse was
really
another,
good
just
one. Yeah.
what in the heck?
Yeah.
And the people that he ends up casting for these,
Yeah.
pretty much pitch perfect.
He
So
definitely seems to be a pretty big William Dafoe fan. I mean, he cast William Dafoe in The Lighthouse, and it seems like he also just cast William Dafoe in his version of Nosferatu that just recently came out. That is apparently receiving really good reviews. But you can never, I don't know, me personally, I never really trust reviews, especially mainstream critic reviews. It's kind of one of those things where you should always just find out for yourself, even if something is getting tons of good reviews or tons of bad reviews. I still kind of like to see shit for myself. But that's one I've been really looking forward to seeing is Robert Eggers' version of Nosferatu. I imagine that's going to be a lot of fun, and yeah, William Defoe's in that too. But yeah, it's just it is one of those genres, and even before Robert Chambers, it kind of took us on this crazy journey with all of these different stories that make up The King in Yellow. And even before that, when we kind of look at some of his influences, even some, we know that Robert Chambers, of course, was a big influence on Lovecraft, but you look at what influenced Robert Chambers himself, and I mean, you can't look past Ambrose Bierce and the insane work that he kind of laid down, a few years before Robert Chambers. And in this, we have Hattai the Shepherd and an inhabitant of Carcosa, and these are the two, as far as I can tell, the earliest iterations we have anywhere of Hastur and of Carcosa. And in Carcosa in particular, inhabitant of Carcosa, the way that it's read, the way that it's written, it's written in that first person POV. So as you're going through it, I don't know if anybody else got this feeling, or if PM, if you got this feeling as well. As you're going through it, and I imagine this is probably the effect the writer was trying to instill. It doesn't feel like you're reading things happening to a character. It feels like you're reading things happening to you as you're reading this book. The way that it's set up, the way that it's so first person, all of the dialogue is this is happening to you, not to him. This is happening to you, and it gives you that feeling of like, holy shit, you're in this thing. It feels like you are in this lost ancient city of Carcosa yourself, and you're not actually reading about a character there. You are there, and I love that feeling that Ambrose Bierce kind of lays out with an inhabitant of Carcosa.
Oh yeah, specifically this story has so many similarities to From. And really, let's begin at the beginning, right, guys? So Hester, the king in yellow, Carcosa is his realm. It's his
Yes.
kingdom. It's his city. So in this story, we are taken through Carcosa as somebody kind of realizes that they are in Carcosa. The
Yes.
similarity to From, the first one, is that when you arrive in Carcosa, you don't realize that you have arrived. It is through a
Mm-hmm.
series of discoveries that you find out that you are in the lost city. In the
Yep.
city, you can't get there if you tried. So, where have we heard that from, right? There is
Yeah.
a
So
quote
similar.
um, they say, right? There's a quote: to come is easy and takes hours, to go is different and may take centuries.
Mm. Yeah, it is super similar. Like you said, it's almost, and again, that's why I would be very shocked if all of this stuff, Inhabitant of Carcosa, Ambrose Bierce, Robert Chambers, Lovecraft, it seems like we're seeing more and more that this was at least some kind of influence in terms of crafting the very fabric of what From is. You know, just like you look at the very main focal points in terms of what From is, this mysterious land where you pointed out very well. We see that through the POV of the Matthews family very early on in the very first episode. We see, you know, to them, they're just driving down a road. They're just lost on the highway. They have no idea they've actually stepped into this other realm, this other world. Very similar with an Inhabitant of Carcosa, where he slowly starts seeing these weird things. First, you get the lynx, that lynx cat that kind of walks up to him and kind of just goes right past him. Then the old man goes right past him, chanting in some ancient kind of language. And slowly but surely, he starts seeing all these signs until he gets to the big reveal, where he sees the gravestone with his name on it. And he realizes he's dead and he's in Carcosa. Very similar to Jim and the Matthews, to Tabitha and the Matthews family, finally actually figuring out that realization that they're stuck here and From. Yes, they see the tree and they're already stuck there after they see the tree, but to them, they're just lost on the highway. It's not until they start seeing all the irregularities, Boyd with the bell, all of the, you know, the weird kind of funeral happening as they pull up. It's not till they start to see all these weird things that they realize, okay, something's not right here.
Mhm. That's a great point. And what does Hastur or the King in Yellow specialize in? Because every deity, demon, god, ancient god in this case, they specialize in something. So, what he specializes in is taking your reality and turning it upside down, corrupting
Warping
your
it.
reality. Now,
Mm.
it's subtle, and that's what we see in From. Why are the monsters so scary? I mean, when we see them, they're not looking gory, right? At the beginning, we
Yes.
see them and they're put together. But
Yep.
why are they scary if they're smiling and they're put together? It's because it's uncanny. There's something wrong with them. You see them, it's your reality, but there's something really wrong at the surface level. It's not there. And that's what makes it horrifying.
It is, and that's why it's, you know, sometimes it's your imagination and the things that you can't quite see that are a lot scarier. I've always thought that the monsters were just way scarier in their human form. Yes, their monster form is creepy. You know, it's dangerous looking. It's scary. It looks good. I don't want to take anything away from it, but when these monsters are in their human form and they just look like your average everyday person, your neighbor, your milkman. I know we don't have a whole lot of milkmen running around these days still, but it creates that, it instills that feeling of almost that existential dread. And I feel like existential dread and existential fear is almost sometimes way worse than, you know, fear of something physical that's right coming at you. Because
That's right.
yeah, your imagination just, it runs wild. And when you're seeing something physical, your mind kind of instantly kind of measures the threat level and what you're up against. But when you're
Mhm.
talking about existential threat, things that aren't quite, you know, there in front of you, a little more ethereal, it makes your imagination run wild. And when your imagination has kind of no limit to how horrific it can be, it can just be way scarier when something is existentially kind of dreading
Yeah.
or foreboding as opposed
And
to
it's that
physical.
beautiful cosmic horror, right? The cosmic horror of it all, that it's so large, so dark, so ancient that your mind can't even comprehend. For
Yes.
example, one of the things that forever has plagued humanity is death. Everyone is afraid of death, or they try to tell themselves stories of death to make it less scary. Tilly
Yeah.
herself tells us right before she dies that she used to be terrified of dying.
Yep.
However, she made up this story that it wasn't the end in order to be able to cope. But it's these things that no one knows that really terrify humans, because we could tell ourselves stories, but no one knows for sure.
Yes. Yeah. the imagination is just 10 times more frightening than actually seeing something. I feel, at least for me, in most cases, and I think some other people feel that way. It's just it's because again, there's no limit to what you can put on that fear that's coming from the imagination. But we got Blue, who has just become a YouTube member. Thank you so much, Blue, for becoming a member. And of course, for anyone who is members of the channel, we just completely updated all of our custom Fromville emojis. We got the man in yellow now. We got the king in yellow himself as well. We got the Ankui children in there. We got the new updated version of the boy in white, the kimono creature, a new Smiley, a new Jade, and a new Boyd. And yeah, I had to leave the nurse though, as Ravener eloquently puts down. Gotta
Yeah,
keep an
the naughty nurse, yes, from the original.
Yeah, I mean, you think there's? I know it's probably unlikely, but I would just nothing would make me happier is if when season 4 came around and we saw that actress playing a nurse again. I know it's very unlikely, but that would
I
make me
wonder,
very happy.
yeah, I wonder if it's just a matter of having people around in Nova Scotia. And I mean, if you're trying to work, you can't really be available. I've done like extra work, work as an extra at times in my past, and it's really for somebody who doesn't have a lot going on in life. You have to be available at weird times for weird durations. And so it's not really a great way to make a living, I guess. I mean, we have studios here in New Mexico, and I don't know if it would be workable. I mean, it's something fun to do when you're a student or something, but yeah, you're not going to put food on the table year round. And then then having that long layoff like she did, and now we're going to have the same thing again, another 18 months or whatever. I mean, it'll be 18 months till we get the finished product. I'm sure they'll be filming much sooner, but no, going back to your guys' original point about the the fear of the unknown and the dread and whatnot. That's really, I think, we're seeing it underscored in our watch parties, because we just did episode 1 and 2 of season 1, and we'll be doing episodes 3 and 4 on Sunday. But really, what was so cool, and that's the thing that really made me fall in love with the show, or from square one, is that we were learning the rules at the same rate as the Matthews family. Some of the Christy knew the rules, Boyd knew the rules, Kenny, even Ellis thought it was essentially a suicide mission for Boyd to go to the RV and take a chance that the talismans would work to secure the RV against the monsters, while Christy worked on Ethan's leg and whatnot. But we were learning the rules at the same rate that the Matthews family was. And Jim's like, why can't we, what is this? You've got a gun. Why don't you use it? Hey, there's people out there. Why don't we let them in? They want to help. And and then they all get in that situation, as more new people come, as newer people than them come, they have to be the ones that are telling them, like, look, you're not going to believe this. This is incredibly hard to believe. But yeah, if you don't get in if you don't get inside, you're all going to die. Just put yourself in that situation. You're driving through a weird town, and it's relatable. You're like, somebody told me that I'd step on the gas. I know I'd be dead day one. I don't think I would last.
Really? You don't have it in you to survive? That's me as well. I've always said I'm Dell. I would complain, and then I'm a pessimist. I would throw myself to the monsters.
No, I mean, the first time it's like, listen, you have to do exactly what I say. You don't have time to argue about it.
Believe them,
yeah, come in, get out of your car and come inside here immediately. Like, man, I know, I've seen enough things. I know how that ends. Yeah,
this is my first rodeo.
Exactly.
First rodeo.
No, that is. You bring up a good point, though. I mean, because how do you convince somebody something like that? Boyd's situation, when Boyd and his family arrived, it was a very unique and fortuitous situation for them, because it was just starting to get dark, to the point where they could at least hear the screeches in the background in the distance. Had Boyd and Abby not have heard those screeches, those the howls that the monsters used to do before the talismans were found, they might have not believed him because you saw him. I mean, as soon as that happened, the first thing Abby does is pull out her freaking gun, and she's ready. She's ready to shoot this freaking priest if he doesn't get away from the car, I imagine. And she tells Boyd, "Drive, keep driving." And then boom, we hear the screeches in the background, and Cautry says, "That's death, and it's coming for us right now." But if those screeches weren't there, yeah, how hard would it have been to convince somebody like Boyd and like Abby, who, you look at their background, the military background, and they've seen probably all the dangers that this world has to offer in wartime. How do you convince somebody like that who is so hardened, whose worldview is already kind of very much set in terms of what they believe? How do you convince somebody like that of something just completely outside of the realm of what is usually possible? It's such a tall task.
Mhm.
Again, they got lucky with the screeches there, but those screeches weren't there. I imagine, yeah, I mean, could we potentially, and maybe that's why we see a lot of people die upon entering Fromville, just simply because they don't want to believe what's happening.
Mhm. And therein lies our second connection, Iron Abbey. We have a
Yes.
connection with what Kenny tells Acosta. Kenny tells Acosta,
Yeah.
basically, you have to adapt. You're either going to adapt or you're going to go insane. And that is the King in Yellow's realm. The King in
Yep.
Yellow teaches us that our reality is fluid. We like to believe that our reality is set in stone, that our reality is steel or iron. However, our reality can be manipulated and it's more like water flowing. We don't like that. For
Yeah.
example, Iron Abbey. Her name was Iron Abbey, and it kind of reflected her journey and from because she
It was a
wasn't
telltale
able to
sign.
bend. Iron doesn't
Yes.
bend, it breaks. And she broke.
Yes. It really was. It's almost like they were kind of telling, like when you look back, hindsight is always 2020, of course, but and that's why it's so fun to go back and rewatch these episodes after you kind of get new information, definitive information later on. Because yes, going back now when I watch season one, it's almost like the writers were just telegraphing right from the beginning that Abby is one of those people that is not going to be able to survive here, just with that simple nickname of Iron Abby. Like you said it perfectly. Iron doesn't bend, it freaking breaks. So it's like that's why I love going back and doing these rewatches, because in hindsight you get to see what the writer was setting up, where at first you just didn't really have the context to even know what the writer was setting up there, because we hadn't heard that conversation with Kenny yet or with Acosta yet. But no, that's why I love how they have been setting up from, and not just from, but the mystery box style of storytelling in and of itself, when done right, these are the things that make it so worthwhile, being able to go back and pick out things that we just didn't have context for the first go around. And that's a perfect example of that, indeed. Perfect example. Awesome stuff. I mean, I don't know where my manners are tonight, but let me say what is up to the chat. I totally forgot to say what is up to the awesome chat that we have assembled here this evening. Let me say what is up to each and every one of you. Oh, but before that, I wanted to save this one. You see these kind of rocks popping up out of the ground, and that's another thing that instantly reminded me of an inhabitant of Carcosa, because it's kind of described like that as well, where all of these weird kind of stones are protruding from the ground. And it's not till later on that you find out what these rocks really are. Gravestones. So I wonder what's up with all these rocks that we are seeing here in front. We see them not only here, but we also see the ones that are kind of covered in red that Tabitha was seeing
Mhm.
as a child, the ones that where Jade has his visions as well.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering where that's going to play in, and are we going to see, will we learn a little bit more about these rocks, and could they potentially be some ancient form of grave even? I mean, because I just love all these similarities we're getting from the King in Yellow
Yeah.
and Carcosa.
I think
But
it really speaks to the decay of the town. The King in
yeah,
Yellow, his Carcosa is decay. It's a city that you could imagine
it's the
being glorious.
ruins.
However, it's
Yes.
not like that anymore. And that's kind of like with From. There's things that are missing. You can tell that it's weathered
Yeah.
and it used to be something, but it doesn't quite match. The houses don't match, and we're missing, the sheriff's station, the motel.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it does. It's almost like it's remnants of two different worlds in a sense, where in one sense we see kind of a little bit more of the modern Fromville with the 50s, 60s, 40s, 50s, 60s era housing that we see like in the actual town. But then we see all of these other ruins, whether it's the ruins that the ruins where Boyd encounters Martin, the other little set of ruins that are actually right near the root cellar that Boyd and Kenny kind of walk by in season two, right before they see the ballerina. So it's almost like you are seeing these ruins of what Fromville potentially was once upon a time. And that's another thing that I think is very fascinating coming out of this season three finale is trying to figure out exactly how old Fromville is. And I've started to revisit it myself multiple times where even if the monsters themselves might not be as old as I originally thought, Fromville itself, this pocket of energy, this dimension could very well be incredibly old. I know a lot of people think it might stretch all the way back to 1506, which could, I suppose,
Mhm.
that could be possible as well. But that's one thing that I love about From is because you are kind of seeing like the melding of two different worlds where past is meeting present. You're seeing this ruins of what could potentially have been, very much like you said with Carcosa, where it's the ancient ruins of this glorious city that once existed upon a time, where now it's just this tattered mess. Very much like From,
Oh,
very
yeah,
much.
and you can really see, um, the familiar but strange. So the town
Yeah.
looks familiar, but then if you really pay attention, it's off. It's not right. You start to put the details together and you go down a list of things that are not quite right. And
Yeah.
that in itself is Carcosa. Um,
Hmm.
I've talked to Jeremy about this, but True Detective season one, it was not as true to the King in Yellow as people
Yeah.
believe that it was, okay? But
Mm.
they do have a beautiful quote where they say, this town is like a memory of a town, but the memory is fading. And that's where you get the missing pieces, the missing motel. It's fading. It used to be there.
Yeah, and I love that. I really do love that. It's just, man, you start to look at all these weird similarities, and I start to wonder what other things haven't we seen yet. What other things can we kind of dive into from not just the King in Yellow and Carcosa, but it seems like Fromville is taking from in and of itself is taking influence, excuse me, from so much different stuff, so many different mythologies and literature and real world mythology, a good mix of both. And that's where my kind of head has been at lately in terms of what can I dive into that could potentially tell me where this thing is going. Because I feel like when we look in the past, we're seeing some really interesting new stuff that we didn't even really know to look for yet. That's why, again, I love that we're doing a rewatch right now and we're diving into each and every episode again. But yeah, I cannot wait to see what other things I can continue to dive into, whether it's the King in Yellow, some Lovecraft, all of it, in terms of maybe pointing a direction as to where this could be going.
Do you think there's actually going to be something? I think, man, I think they have
No,
their
I don't
story
think there'll
already
be
written and they're
yeah,
overlaying all this stuff over the top of it, all the influences, all the aesthetics,
yeah.
all that. They're applying it to their pre-existing story, and I think it's throwing us for a loop. Although I would never discourage anybody from checking out some of this classic literature. Actually, I remembered the same thing
Mm,
with when I was reading, and I that was another one I got partway through and then kind of set it aside and then just didn't pick it up. But that again, going right back to King in Yellow, man. I know I told Jeremy the other day that reminded me how much I really do enjoy reading in that slow kind of like very immersive pace.
mhm.
And the word, I know Eric Grant said, it's difficult. It isn't difficult, but I do have to dust my brain cells off and put them to use. It isn't easy consumption, and I think even stuff like Tolkien was not really heavy because it was intended not for the like a necessarily an adult audience really, but it got cumbersome with all the proper nouns and all that kind of stuff, trying to figure out how you would think that you would pronounce them and stuff. But then you get stuff like stuff that was written in the 1990s, like Game of Thrones, and it's
Mhm.
way more accessible, just because the verbiage, just because of the vocab that people used back then. And I was thinking, I think I mentioned this a while back. Probably not as many people were literate, but the people that were in 1895 were super literate. They were very good at it, and I kind of picked that up out of The King in Yellow, but it made me want to go back and read Lovecraft again and get a
Mhm.
little
Uh,
further. Um, and I think that those are the kind of things that I'll never discourage anybody from doing, because those are the things that kind of elevate you. They're edifying, and so that everybody will refer to Lovecraft, but how many people have actually read? And I can't even
yeah,
pretend that I got about maybe a quarter of the way through. I bought like the complete works or whatever,
yeah,
and it's
yeah.
not
Even
always
I haven't read it all yet.
yeah, it's not always cumbersome, because a lot of these guys wrote short stories, and you can
Mhm.
really see, so you can go a certain distance, read a story or two, and then bookmark it or whatever. But the thing is, man, it's just in this modern world, I got to put my freaking phone down, turn notifications
Mhm.
off, and really allow yourself to soak into that world. And some people just aren't readers, and people have tried to
Yeah,
make me do audiobooks and podcasts, and they've recommended a million different things. I'm not a podcast guy. I'm not somebody whose attention span um can tolerate that. But when I square off a block of time, yeah, and usually right before bed, and thankfully you have to know yourself well enough that my eyes are going over the words, but I'm getting ready to fade off to sleep. I know it's time
yeah,
to put the bookmark in, so
yeah.
you don't have to go back. Oh yeah, and Crazy Mad says good looking out on that set. Yeah, man, we for Black Friday they had like the complete works, or the complete Hobbit and the three Lord of the Rings books for $15, after tax and shipping and everything. It's like you can't.
Mm,
Sometimes you just, if you don't have that. I mean, if you don't, I mean, there's no point in having multiples if you already have it. But like Aldous said that he bought like two or three of them, of that exact same thing, just for the purpose of giving it as a gift. And for people that like to settle down and just enjoy reading. And I mean, you get a good bright light. I'm getting a little older, so my vision's still good, but by the end of the day, my eyes are fatigued. So I bought these crappy little like 1x magnifying magnifiers that you get at the grocery store or whatever, and it really makes a
hey,
difference. I went to the eye doctor thinking that, well, like, oh shit, I'm losing my vision again, or again. I had LASIK back when it first came out, and it brought me
oh
to like
wow,
2015. It's been for 20 years, it's been perfect. But I thought, man, I'm losing my shit, because my eyes just get blurry by the end of the day. He just said, no. He said, your vision's perfect, but you just get tired. They're just fatigued at the end of the day. And sure enough,
yeah.
man, that easy magnifier, m- you know, and the thing is, they're $15 or whatever it is. It's not like it's a huge investment, but it made a world of difference, and you know,
Hey,
made
if it helps.
made reading, put reading back on the menu essentially. I was like, wow,
Mhm.
it's such a
Mm.
I
great.
just love that you're always giving us the deals. You're
I got
always finding
yeah.
the best prices. You're like, "It's only this much." It's amazing. I love a good deal.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
gotta
yeah,
find
yeah.
them deals, especially today. You gotta find them deals. Yeah,
But I
no, no,
really wanna say too, I really admire and I like your point of view. The beautiful and genius thing about From is that when you're writing a story or a screenplay, you're trying to avoid being or copying too much of previous work.
yeah,
However, they are such geniuses that they decided instead of doing that, we're just going to put a little bit of everything. It's going to be a big melting pot. And
mm,
that way, it's unique because it's not unique. You can see everything reflected in From. And I say hubris if you think that you have the answer or
Yeah.
that it's exactly what you say. A fall from grace can be painful. We have seen it. A lot of people said this is definitely the answer. But I think, it's influence. That's why the American flag is waving when we first in the intro, right? Because it's a melting pot of everything, of all the ideas and all the stories.
Yeah. No, that's actually very well put because we're seeing all of these different influences where it's clearly influenced from a lot of these different mythologies and a lot of these great literary works, but we're never going to be able to find that one thing that gives us all the answers as to where this thing is going. And I very much believe that is the case where. We can have really good theories, accurate theories that might kind of be right every once in a while, but that's why I love From, because there isn't one set source material or anything that we can go read and get all the answers and know this is exactly where this is going. This is why I love original stories. Adaptations are good too, don't get me wrong. I don't mind a good adaptation if it's adapting a really good book or a really good comic and it's doing it well. I'm all for a good adaptation, don't get me wrong, but original stories like this, what From is doing, it seems like it's just so rare these days. It seems like we are living in the age of the reboot, the age of the redo, the age of the sequel. Everything is kind of based on something pre-existing nowadays. Not everything, but at least probably 75% of the shows and movies coming out nowadays are based on some kind of pre-existing form of media. But that's why I love From, and that's why I love diving into this show probably more than any other show that I'm watching currently, because it's just we have no idea where this thing is going. And yes, we have seen a lot of theories out there of people were kind of 100% convinced this was happening, and after this season, after season 3 in particular, a lot of those theories got just straight up debunked, like just completely debunked. And it really, I think we're really starting to see now where none of us know where this thing is going exactly. I don't think any of us are going to be able to 100% guess where this thing is going and what's going to be happening. And that's fun. I mean, if we knew everything that was coming around the corner, this story would not be anywhere near as intriguing. The mystery aspect, the surprise aspect of this show is one of the best parts, in terms of like the mystery. Yes, we want to get answers to all of this weirdness that's going on, but the intrigue is really what draws a lot of people into the show. I feel that, and once that intrigue is gone, the show's going to lose a little bit of something. And again, that's why I kind of always tie it back to why I've never been in a huge rush to get answers. I mean, I'm
Mhm.
totally fine with just letting the answers come whenever they come, because once we learn everything, these conversations, these discussions, these theory sessions are going to start becoming much fewer and much further between.
Mhm.
And then the show loses a little bit of its magic, and I don't want that to happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's actually a great point because our human mind, even when it's confronted with horrifying trauma or things, we try to make sense of it. That's
Yeah,
just how we function. So even if we get answers and it's a horrible monster, we're going to make sense of it. We're going to come to terms and it's not going to be scary. What's
yeah,
scary, and I understand it's frustrating for some in the audience, is to not know, to not get
yes.
the answers that you want. That way it haunts you. Like I feel a lot of us feel haunted by From.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, and not only that, that's when we can kind of let our imaginations run wild again, like we were kind of discussing before. Not knowing what's coming around the corner, it just opens the world of possibilities up 10 times more, where you have no idea what frightening thing is coming around the corner, and you can really your imagination is really endless at that point in terms of what could happen.
yeah, and that's why we're finding it's so hard to find a replacement for From in the absence of new shows, or
Yeah,
new episodes
Yeah.
of it.
it's
Uh,
just so unique.
we wanted, early on, we are like, well, maybe Teacup would be in position, and it turns out that Teacup really, I mean, and again, Teacup was made for like a mass consuming audience. They
Yeah.
gave you the answer, maybe by episode 4, and then they knew, on the bright side, it was based on a book, so they knew where they needed to end by, I think,
Mhm.
I don't remember how many episodes it ended up being, like 6 or 8.
I
um
stopped watching because it started to feel like just like your average generic sci-fi show after
Really?
because
a
you
while.
already knew
Yeah.
Was
exactly
it
what
the
was going to happen.
aliens?
Kind of, not just the aliens, but it just didn't feel like it was a new and unique take on the alien genre. It just seemed like it was kind of the same old regurgitated alien comes to Earth. There's one bad one good one, yada yada kind of thing. It just
body snatching, so you don't know which one is being, which one is possessing it. And now I have to admit, I didn't finish that one. That was another one I didn't finish. I got to the right about where the body swap started happening. So we knew that one was in the little boy and one was in the old lady. I got as far as that one, and then I didn't continue on with it. But I was going to say, in relation to what PM was saying, as far as the melting pot, the one thing that impressed me the most was because you can throw some Viking runes in, some Norse runes, and you can throw in some Native American stuff, and that fits pretty well. You can make that. The one that impressed me the most was making the kimono lady fit, because when you're doing a melting pot, when you're trying to overlay certain aesthetics or certain even monsters from different mythologies into your world, it can be tricky, and if you do it too clumsily or too ham-handedly, it really is jarring, and it has potential to kind of like shake the audience out of the the spell that you're trying to weave for them. But the writers in From really have done a pretty excellent job, and there have been points where I've started wondering, are they going to be able to pull it off? But I think at least in season 1 and season 3, I think they really did. And I mean, they waited till the last minute to in season 3 to bring everything back together and make it a cogent story. And I was like, wow, I was amazed because my doubts were there. And like, Don't Even Worry About says, the From writers took a major risk on the show and they succeeded overachieving. They definitely have. They punched above their weight. And it really gives me confidence in wanting to go back and watch it again for, not only in the rewatch parties for seasons 1 to 3, but when season 4 comes back, it gave me a lot of confidence seeing how they started season 3. It was outstanding. I mean, it did flag in the middle, I felt, but finished very, very strongly. But at least I have faith, and it's a good thing when you can trust that the writers are taking you on a trip that you want to be on. It's not like they're going to get you so far along and then just veer off into some weirdness that you're just not interested in.
Like 1899 did.
That's exactly it. Exactly. And I was still working. I mean, I was having trouble, and I think it might have been something about 1899. The dub was a little bit different. Like the English dub and the subtitles were a little bit different, because I remember one scene where like a little kid was telling somebody something in a language they didn't understand. Like one of the kids from Steerage was trying to tell somebody something, and they were going on, and then the person just said, "I can't understand what you're saying," but they didn't say that in English. And I was like, what the frick is going on? And then I think you told me like by episode 6 they had the huge reveal, and it was a weird thing, and I don't even think I made it to episode 6 on that one. So I mean, for any show to get me to actually finish it, because I give everything a chance. I mean, we're always open to shows, we always we want to find that next big thing, the next thing that's going to make us passionate and make us want to talk about it. But I don't know, there are like pop culture commentary channels and review channels that'll just watch everything that comes out, and that's what they do. They'll talk about it no matter what. But I'm not going to, hang my hat on a show and like recommend it and put my reputation out there as a man of superior taste, and then have it not be a and of surpassing humility.
He is humble, our Lord.
I'd say my humility is my greatest attribute. No, I'm actually cribbing that from D-Wag. Yeah, D-Wag would say humility.
Yeah, yeah. If we could all only be as humble as D-Wag, we would go far in life. Yeah, shout out to D-Rag wherever he is. No, no. I see what you mean though. I mean, and that's one thing I feel like we've always the shows that we cover here on this channel. It's always stuff that we're deeply passionate about. Whether it's whether it's House of the Dragon, A Song of Ice and Fire, Shogun, Yellow Jackets when that comes back around. It shows that we are very very deep into. I never want to kind of just start reviewing any old show that comes around just because it's in a similar genre. Like the stuff we talk about here are stuff that we're very passionate about, things that we actually really freaking like. And I feel like it always just makes for a better discussion that way, as opposed to kind of just talking about any old thing that comes up. That's why we've been getting a lot of requests for some really good shows that people want us to review, and I just haven't had a chance to watch all of them yet. Like Severance, for example, we've been getting a lot of requests for Severance. I finally got around to starting to watch Severance, and I am loving it so far. So that will probably be one that we add to the list. So yeah, no, it's just it's always better when it is coming from a place of things that we're actually really into and not just watching for views. That's something that we will never do here anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And that's why I like doing, and that's why I'm doing the Lord of the Rings watch parties on Friday nights, because it's something I know maybe not everybody's seen it. Everybody I know has seen it, but there might be somebody who just hasn't really done it. Nothing wrong with that, but it's definitely worth doing. And you'll be in a friendly environment, and it's a nice chance to see it in high def, the extended version. Probably after that, I know. BK. Yeah, BK is going to be running Shogun. Probably after I wrap up Lord of the Rings, I was thinking about running Firefly, the original Firefly, and then finishing off with Serenity. Just something to do. Just something that I really enjoyed, that I thought was awesome, that I think other people might enjoy too. And man, when you guys are in the Discord, don't wait for us to do it. If there's something that you want, I know people.
Everybody has access to the voice chat. Anybody can run a watch party anytime they want. Any single one of you. Everybody's got free, complete access. Yeah.
Yeah, I know people have been rattling about Silo now that they're in the second season of Silo. Man, go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another one that I did because I loved Silo season 1. I think that's like another really good show, and I think it's a very underrated show. I think that's a show some people kind of fizzle out on because it is a little bit of a slow start, and even I had a little bit of trouble with it watching that first episode. It is very much a slow start, but once you give it a shot and really kind of just actually commit to it, and it's way worth the payoff later on. Like once you get to like episode 3 or 4 of Silo, the show really starts to cook, and you can tell that's why I always try to give every series I'm watching at least 3 episodes. I feel like you can never always get the full feel of a show watching only one episode, watching just the pilot episode. Yes, sometimes the pilot will be enough to kind of draw you in and hook you right off the bat. Like for instance, From is one of the perfect examples of how to do a pilot the right way, where it just completely hooks you right off the first episode. But not every show is like that. I've seen many shows where I didn't really like the pilot a whole lot, and then I get to episode 2 and 3 and I realize, oh shit, this is a freaking awesome series. And Silo was one of those for me. Episode 1 in and of itself didn't do it for me. But then I thought, let's watch 2, let's watch 3, see where this thing goes. And it did. It really started to take off. It really started to kind of ground itself. It really started to cook. Once Rebecca Ferguson is introduced into the show, it gets a whole lot better. She's really not in a lot of the first episode. It's really centered around the sheriff. Gives you a good little kind of prequel story. But once you get to her character and they start kind of world building the Silo a little bit more, it is worth it. So that was one I meant to do reviews on for season 2. I'm just not caught up yet. So if I can get caught up to the current episode where we are now, maybe I can do some reviews on the back half of season 2. If I can, I will definitely get that done. But let me catch up on these real quick, and then we will dive back into some From goodness, because I want to ask each and every one of you some interesting questions about this mysterious man in yellow. But first, we got Wall Saint Tech for 234. Thank you so much. So Earl Sheeb killed the dad. Shaib killed the dad. Oh, the dad, as in Jim, I imagine you are referring to. I mean, I felt very bad for Jim. I don't know if it was just me. I know I'm probably in the minority there. I know a lot of people don't like Jim, but I genuinely felt really bad for Jim in that final episode. Not just him dying, but all of the circumstance of events that happened before his death. Was the real tragic part, where we're finally seeing some really good character development from him. We're finally seeing Jim evolve as a husband, as a father, as a person in general, because it's not just his family he's evolving with. We saw that great scene with Randall as well. So I
How,
get. I know I'm
how
definitely in the
old are you?
minority.
Wall Street Tech, how old are you? Earl Scheib? That's a car, like a car collision repair guy. But he did
Yeah,
these commercials and like
is that who that is?
that's
Okay.
funny, man. Yeah,
Does
that's
he
funny.
look
Yeah,
like
I
him
was
or
lost.
something? Yeah, I was a
I was
little
like, I
lost there.
apologize. I don't know who.
Yeah, a little lost there myself. I guess it looks like this guy. Maybe the actor looks similar. But thank you for filling me in, Raven. I appreciate you. But no, I felt bad for Jim, man. I did. Again, I know I'm in the minority there. I know our chat in particular haven't been big Jim fans, in the past, notoriously, which is totally fine. Again, everybody is free to like or dislike whoever they want. Jim has definitely been a bit of a knucklehead at times, so I understand why he's not a fan favorite. But I did genuinely feel myself feeling bad for him after everything that went down. That there's a very tragic circumstance of events leading up to his death. His death in and of itself, if it would have just kind of come out of nowhere, I probably wouldn't have felt as bad. I think it was everything that happened before it that really made me feel for him. The good character growth, and then just getting this gut punch, the mother of all gut punches, when you find out that your wife is the reincarnated lover of Jade, of all fucking
Ouch.
people. Jade.
And it's the
And we know
guy
how
he
Jim.
hates. It's the
Exactly.
one,
Yeah, I
oh
was gonna
my
say we know how
God.
Jim feels about Jade. So of all the people in the town to be a reincarnated lover of, Jade is probably the last Jim ever wanted to hear. And then
Yeah,
boom, he just gets completely taken out right afterwards. So I felt bad for
yeah,
Jim.
man. And he had just turned. I mean, he had just gotten to the point where he said, "Look, no matter what's going on with you, even if I don't understand it, I'm 100% on board. I'm going to stand by you." And then they've raised the bar just that little bit farther. He gets that little extra, and it's like, man, I wish I could. I again, you put yourself in those situations, and you tell yourself, you tell somebody, look, no matter, I'm with you 100%. I'm all in all the way, even if I don't understand it, I'm going to support you. And then they're like, oh yeah, by the way, I also found out this little extra thing, and you're like, I wish I could take back what I wish I wish I could take it back. So yeah, I mean that's really, I mean I'd do the same thing. I'd be doing like Jim. I'd go to the RV. I'd put my hands in my head and be like, "What the f is going on here?" It's a lot to take in. It's a lot to, and that's the thing. And that was a recurring theme in season 3. Is a lot of these different people have they get what they thought would be to their maximum limit of stress, of strain, of pressure, of things to absorb. We saw it with Boyd, we saw it with Henry, and then whoever it is that's around them, whoever it is that's causing them, like specifically Boyd, or I mean Henry with uh, Victor. Just when he thought he could wrap his brain around some of the stuff, some of the idiosyncrasies, some of the problems that Victor had, some of the strangeness of Victor. He can wrap his brain around it to an extent, understand, this guy's been in this strange situation. And then he starts talking to this doll, trying to,
Yeah.
threaten this doll to make it
I
talk.
know you can
And
talk.
you're
You
just
better
one.
talk to me right now.
I
Yeah.
love that scene. When
And
he
So
pushes
good.
him in the chair and the doll's just swinging back and forth.
yeah.
So good.
And you're exactly right, Jeremy. Your instinct on not wanting it to come to life. I thought for sure it was going to. I thought we were
Yeah.
definitely going to see it come to life. It was going to turn around and say something, but at no point, even in I thought in the chair when they discovered Jasper down in the caves, I thought he was going to turn his head and say something. I thought for sure it was
Yeah.
going to be animated in some way, but it really wasn't. Other than I mean, even in Victor's faulty memory when um Christopher and Jasper were arguing. Oh yeah, by the way, now again, it was the boy in white, which is another another like vision kind of supernatural thing, but at least they didn't jump the shark as far as having the ventriloquist doll animated
Yeah.
and talking, which is
We
it's
dodged the
funny
bullet.
as far as they go with all the stuff that we have to suspend our disbelief on.
Yeah.
They always reel it back right before they go just that bit too far. And I know a lot of people are skeptical, and we've seen that in our watch parties, like in the commentary afterwards in the discussion part.
Mhm.
Some people are like, man, look at this and look at this, and I can't get past this one thing or this one thing. I'm like, man, I kind of understand it, and I'm not going to criticize anybody for being hypercritical,
Mhm.
but I
Yeah.
mean, so you've gotten past the part where these monsters rise at night to slash you, and they shapeshift from human form to monstrous form. That part you've reconciled and you're okay with, but it's that one other piece that's just a bridge too far, and it's like, yeah, you have to be. This is one of those shows you kind of just have to be all in on the ride, because if you try to
Mhm.
apply logic and reason and just rationality, it's by definition an irrational world. Things do not, I mean, there seem to be rules involved, like
Mhm.
rules of the world, but I don't think we have a complete understanding of them, not by a long shot. And I don't think the
No.
people living there even have a
No.
complete understanding of them.
Yeah,
That's
and
true.
even Lost. Yeah, even Lost kind of left certain things in terms of like the nature of what the island was. By the time you got to the end of the Lost, you got pretty much all the definitive answers you need to get. Anything that was major, anything that was a big mystery on the show, everything got answered and got answered well. But in terms of like the very nature of the island, things like that, some of those stuff were left ambiguous, and I imagine it's probably going to be very similar here with From as well, where we'll get some origins for things, and maybe some of the purpose for why Fromville is here, and what purpose is this place serving in the overall, nature chain of event, in nature. Does it have its own
Mhm.
nature? Of course. And that's why I really enjoy the little scene we get with Tom and Jade whenever Tom comes back, where he's kind of trying to tell Jade this exact kind of concept, where Jade is saying nothing here makes sense, and Tom says no, nothing here is familiar. And there's a big difference between things just not making sense and things not being familiar. There's a natural order to how Fromville operates. We just don't know it. We have no idea what the natural order of this place is, how it really works, how it really operates, what is really going on here. That's one thing that we just don't know, and may never well know. So that's always one thing I love when the show kind of dives into those realms in terms of, separating that distance between, things just not making sense, and you just simply not knowing enough about these things for them to make sense yet. Like again, there's a natural
Mhm.
order to Fromville. I very much believe that. But do we know the natural order? Absolutely not. Will we ever know truly the natural order of Fromville and why things happen the way they do here? Maybe, maybe not. That could be left ambiguous. But that's what's
Yeah.
fun about From, and
I do want to
the
say
world.
about Jim, because I
Mm,
feel like a lot of people miss this, okay?
Yeah,
And
give
it
us your take
connects
on
back
Jim.
to the King in Yellow. It really connects back to the King in Yellow. Like I said, the King in Yellow, what he does is he takes what's important to you, what's your reality, and he turns it upside down, manipulates it. It also connects to Dr. Mabuse as he manipulates. That is their specialty. So
Like we see
at
with the
Jim,
Thomas phone ring, maybe
yeah.
the whole
So
Thomas
Jim,
thing.
what was important to him, we all know this, is his family.
Yeah,
Him having a family, specifically a wife and his children, because it went in that order a lot of the times. That's what was important to him. And the men in yellow called him, told him, your wife shouldn't be digging that tower, manipulating that sense of family and the sense that he had to lead the family in a way, saying, don't let your wife do this. Don't
yeah,
let her, don't allow her. So the men in yellow manipulated Jim. And a lot of the things that are unlikable about Jim is him going against Tabitha. He wasn't doing it to be annoying or because he hates the fact that she's trying to figure things out. It was this illusion of control. He wanted to
yes,
keep her safe. So a lot of
yeah,
the things that we don't like about him are directly a manipulation of the men in yellow. At the end, when he finally says, I'm all in, he gives them the answer, which, by the way, he had the answer all along. The man in yellow tells him not just that knowledge comes what they cost, but also tells him and reminds him, I tried to warn you,
mm,
letting us know
yes,
that this manipulation has been at play. But finally, we get to see Jim in a new light once he's not being manipulated. And that's when he kills him, because that was the goal, to always have Jim going against the grain.
yeah. No, that's actually a really good point. Yeah, I mean, and that's exactly what we see with Jim. And I feel like, again, the conversation that Henry has with him was so effective. I mean, it seems like that was the big wake up call Jim really needed to hear from somebody like Henry, who has been through the exact same path that Jim is going down right now. That's why I love that the kind of parallels that we're seeing from a lot of these characters, whether characters are reincarnations of each other or not. We know that Tabitha and Jade, of course, are, but we still have a big question mark in terms of the rest of the cast and the rest of the people in Fromville. Are they also reincarnations of other people, or is it just character archetypes kind of repeating? But that's one thing I love about the whole parallel thing that we're seeing here in From, where Henry has been through everything that Jim has been through. He's seeing a 40-year-old version of him doing all the same things and making all the same mistakes that he made with Miranda. So I love how Jim was lucky enough to have that added benefit of having Henry there. Henry didn't have a Henry to give him that information. Henry was kind of just doing all the same things that Jim was doing, and he had nobody there to kind of pull him back and show him, hey, you're holding on too tight. You're trying to be too controlling. Yes, it's coming from a place of love. Yes, you do
Mhm.
want to protect your family. I get that. But the way you're going about it is actively hurting your family where you're trying to protect them. Henry didn't have that, where Jim did have that kind of wake up call from Henry. So I think that's what makes Jim's kind of death that much more tragic, where he finally was coming around. He finally was realizing
Mhm.
that he was being too controlling. He
And it
was being
genuinely
too
is
overbearing.
tragic because he
It is,
genuinely,
yeah.
we could say a lot of things about Jim, but one
Yeah,
thing we
he's
cannot say
pretty
is that he
flawed.
didn't love
Yeah,
his wife or his family. Maybe he
yeah.
wasn't the most attentive, but he loved them. And to have that ripped away on a cosmic level, heartbreak to the
Yes.
level of 1 billion, and then to die, I mean, come on, that's tragic.
It's tough. It is tough. And we got we got Jim himself in the chat right now. That wasn't my kids, and she was never my wife. Should have minded
Hi,
my own
Jim.
business. Welcome, Jim. Good to see you back from the grave. That is great. I love that Jim is here in the flesh. Should have minded my own business.
Hey man, you got a lot of fans here.
Yeah. You do, yeah, you do. You got some fans here, and again, it was a very tragic way for him to go out. And then when they showed this flashback too, it just made it that much more. I don't know if it was just me, but when I saw this little flashback scene,
Hmm.
it was a tiny gut punch. Obviously, not a gut punch on the realm of Victor and Henry kind of finally having their breakthrough that they do near Miranda's grave, which was just, in my opinion, the best scene of the finale. But this little quick little flash of a second, this little flashback of hearing that dialogue of Jim saying, "I wish we could go back to when things were different." And, and that is everything. I mean, if you can encapsulate everything that Jim is feeling in that one moment, it's that one line. I wish we could just go back to before things were like this. Because again, he just got his whole world rocked, everything that he knew, his entire foundation system, his entire belief system in terms of what grounds Jim, what makes Jim Jim. That is his love for his family. That is his identity at this point. And you see that kind of just get ripped away from him, and then followed by him actually losing his life. It was a tragic way to go out, and it was beautifully written. That's another thing. I can't praise John Griffin and the
Hmm.
writers enough for how they crafted this final episode. Like, they had a lot to really get through, and that was one thing we were wondering heading into this finale. Were they going to be able to nail it? Were they going to be able to put forth a finale that was satisfying enough that gave us some definitive answers, but also left some big mysteries and new questions for season 4? They had a pretty tall task, especially considering they waited until the final episode to give us all these answers. A lot of us were expecting them to be maybe a little more spread out evenly between 9 and 10, with both episodes being titled Revelations. But we didn't really get any revelations in episode 9. It was pretty much all set up for the finale. So heading into this last episode, I was a little nervous. I'm not going to lie, and we talked about this, Ravener, before the episode before the finale aired. And I think the sentiment was shared by some people in the chat, where we were a little bit worried heading into this final episode. Was it going to be satisfying? Could it even be satisfying with all of the storylines they still had to tie up, and everything that just was? There's just no way they were going to get to all of it. But then when we see the finale come around, I was blown away. I thought they completely ended season 3 off with a near perfect bang, with in terms of finally giving us those definitive answers. Yes, they gave us the answers through kind of nonstop exposition. They didn't actually show us anything, and I did take a few points away from my overall score on the finale for that alone. I don't mind some exposition here and there, but when we're getting into the big answers, like huge answers that we've been waiting the entire series to learn, like the origin for the freaking monsters, that's something they should have shown us in a flashback, and not just given us that over an exposition line from Fatima. So I did take a few small points away from just little stuff like that, but overall, looking at the finale as a whole, considering what we got for answers, considering the new mysteries it sets up for season 4, the entrance of the man in yellow, and everything that he could potentially represent for this show, and this, very seemingly like it's heading more and more into that kind of eldritch cosmic horror phase, where it does start to look like there is this grand cosmic chess match being played in the background, potentially between the man in yellow and the boy in white, where one wants the cycles to keep going and the other wants to break the cycle and save the children. So I just loved where they ended season 3 off. I thought it was a very tall task heading into that final episode. I knew they weren't going to be able to wrap up every storyline. And again, we definitely did not get anything on the whole Cannibal Village thing, which I know a lot of people were disappointed with, and myself as well. I was really hoping we were going to get something for Cannibal Village. They were really setting that place up very well in season 3 in terms of it being very mysterious, very run down, the weird totems, there was the weird knocking at night. They were setting up Cannibal Village beautifully, but unfortunately, that was one of the storylines that they just could not wrap up in season 3, that they carried over to season 4. So I'm hoping we
Hmm.
get a really good storyline there in season 4, but they wrapped up everything they could as best as they could in season 3, with leaving those threads open for season 4. So I was very satisfied.
Oh
Yeah, there was
yeah,
some.
I thought it was beautiful. It was when you're looking at just the characters, right? And I know that a lot of the audience they're like, no, I want the horror, right?
Yeah,
The
which I
mystery.
understand.
Understandable.
Yeah.
But sometimes for me it's like I'll just take anything. I'll take what I can get. I'll find
Me
beauty
too.
in it. And
Yeah.
so I found it to be amazing. Something that you said that I think is really a callback to The King in Yellow is Jim's loss of his identity, which we know
Yeah.
that that is a specialty of Mr. Hastor.
Yeah.
um,
Yes.
he loses his identity. We also see Fatima losing her identity as her reality is corrupted. Her reality being that she cannot have children. And
Yeah.
now her
And
reality
again,
is flipped. She had a child and it's a monster. And
yeah.
even Sarah in this finale,
Yes.
her life has been marked by violence. Sarah has been a victim. She has told us a couple of things that we infer is her being marked as a victim but by violence since she was very young. And what has the King in Yellow done, or our Man in Yellow? He has turned that upside down and he has made the victim become the violent one,
Hmm.
and that in itself is cruelty. It's corruption at its core, because in her reality she is the victim, not the
Yes.
violent aggressor. She was running away. She was finally going to be safe, and now she has
Hmm.
become the monster.
It's like she embraces becoming that monster. And you do bring up a good point. It's almost like, and I feel like that goes back to some of the really interesting lines we've been getting from characters like Randall in terms of, there are worse, there are some fates here that are worse than death. And losing that identity, I would definitely put that in that realm where something like that, when it is done to the extreme at that some of these cases are, then yes, I mean, losing that sense of self, having your entire foundation, your entire belief system, everything you thought you were, having that ripped away from you, that is and very well can be a fate worse than death. And I think we saw that, like you said, with all the characters that you mentioned, even with Boyd a little bit. I would dare say, had a little bit of that. Where by the time we get to the finale, Boyd is not the Boyd we knew. I mean, he has been changed by this place. These repeated attempts to break Boyd down. Yes, they haven't fully broken him. I mean, he is still Boyd at the end of the day, but he's a different Boyd now. Like the Boyd in season one would never have even entertained the thought of torturing a potential teenager.
Mhm.
I mean, we don't even know how
Yeah.
old Elgin is. He could very well be a teenager still. He doesn't seem like he's that much older than Julie. I would, if I had to guess, I would put Elgin right around 18, 19 years old. He's still a kid. Either way, he's still a kid. Season one, Boyd would never in a million years even, fathom that. I mean, season one, Boyd didn't even want to put Frank in the freaking box, even when Father Kachi was
Mhm.
telling him to. So now we see this different side of Boyd where he has been kind of slowly but surely, his kind of foundation has been chipped away to the point where he is a different Boyd now. He's losing a little bit of that sense of self. And again, a fate like that can be worse than death, just losing yourself, which, like you said, goes back to the King in Yellow as well, because we see those themes, very prevalent within that,
Mhm.
all of those short stories where people losing their sense of self, people losing their sense of their innocence, very prevalent
Yes.
in both stories.
Yes, like Elgin, really, the Man in Yellow,
He's a
or
great
the
idea.
King in Yellow, right? Took his reality. Elgin, being an innocent teenager who holds religion as a comfort. This place has taken his reality, his comfort, and turned it upside down. Unholy communion and all, when he gives
Yeah,
Fatima his blood to drink. It's
yeah.
using and manipulating the fact that he is religious, that he finds comfort in it, and it turned it upside down and made him do something horrible. And then it
Yes.
victimized him by having him be tortured. He is a victim of this place, and he was
Just like Sarah
manipulated
was
and
in
used.
season one.
And I would say he was picked. So
Yeah.
you made a comment about how these people are chosen. The way that I
Mm,
see it as it lays now is The boy in white is choosing people based on their skills. So he brings in Boyd, Christy, people that can help, people that can make the town better or more hopeful. And the man in yellow brings out broken people, people who are on the verge of being broken or are already broken, who are innocent, who can be corrupted. And that's where we get our Sarah and our Elgin and even Tilly.
Yeah. No, yeah, 100%. I mean, like, even with all of the heinous things that Sarah did, I mean, all of the, the stuff that she was driven to do, at the end of the day, she was just, this innocent kid that was just severely twisted around and manipulated by this place. This place changed her. This place did this to her. She didn't just wake up one day and decide to be evil. I imagine she probably tried to resist it for a while, and she got to a point where she was genuinely convinced that she was doing the right thing. Just like we're seeing with Elgin in season 3, he was genuinely convinced that what he was
Mhm.
doing with Fatima would lead to all of them going home. And like you said, it seems like they played on his faith, because he thought this kimono creature was an angel. That's the first thing
Yeah.
he says here in the scene. He's like, I think she's an angel. And like you
Mm.
mentioned, we already know Elgin does have that kind of strong faith belief system where he is a believer. He does have faith. And that he even talks about it in this scene where faith is one of those things you can't explain, and you could tell, and even Sarah calls it out perfectly, where she says to Boyd, "He's not going to tell you." I mean, this place has gotten inside of his head too
Mhm.
much. That mixed with his just natural faith he already had within him, he believes he's doing the right thing. He believes that he is saving us. He's not going to tell you, and I think that's why Sarah stepping up was even more of an interesting
Mhm.
sacrifice in a way, where
Yes.
she was doing this to save Fatima, yes, but I love the aspect of her doing this just to keep Boyd from doing it, saving his soul at the expense of her own, as she kind of
Yeah.
already sees her soul as damaged. And
So really
Sarah
like a
is,
sacrifice of the soul
yeah,
that is
yeah,
already lost, which if you
yeah,
could put sacrifice by the power of two, it would be Sarah. I mean, it's no mistake that Boyd picks her up at the church. She's hanging around in an empty church, just staring forward, clearly
yeah,
looking for salvation. And what does she do when she's picked up? She then loses her soul even more.
yeah. It is, and it's funny too, because we see Sarah spending so much time in that church. Like anytime Boyd is trying to find Sarah, she's always kind of just sitting in that church. And yes, I imagine that is her kind of repenting. That is her contemplating. What is her place? Is she? Is it capable for her to find forgiveness? Is she too far gone? Is her soul really damned? Is she kind of quote unquote damaged goods, as she kind of views herself? Her tainted soul, her tarnished soul, to the point where you know she just throws all that aside and realize, and I think it does speak to her relationship with Boyd, which is another really interesting relationship that we did see cultivate over the 3 seasons now, where Boyd and Sarah started off in a very kind of precarious space where Boyd was very mistrusting of her, blamed her for a lot of the shit that was going on here, to the point now where he'll do anything to protect her now. They've come a long way. And I think Boyd not only recognizes the asset that Sarah will be to this town, but I think he finally saw her
Mhm.
for who she originally was, just this innocent girl that was manipulated in this place. And if
Yeah.
anybody knows that, it's Boyd. He saw this happen with his own wife. He knows what this place can do to people, which again goes
Mhm.
right back into the King in Yellow, and a lot of Lovecraftian tales as well, where we're seeing something in this town slowly mentally manipulate all of these people and try
Mhm.
to drive them mad, trying to drive
Yeah.
them to madness.
And it's subtle, and that's why it's
Yeah,
insidious. It's insidious in the way that it's little. Like Elgin, he didn't go from nothing to kidnapping. It was asking him to do little things. And then
yep,
he finally did, and Sarah too, asking her, kill Toby, start with a man, open the door, and then ultimately kill a child. So it's a subtle
yeah,
corruption. Something that's
hmm,
really interesting, and I think a lot of people might have missed. We have only seen Boyd one time give up on everything. We haven't seen him broken yet, but we have seen it one time. Season 1, when
Yes.
he and Sarah are
Up
in
the
the
hill
woods, he
after
literally
the spider
gives up.
bites.
He throws
Yep.
himself to the ground, drops his backpack, and he says, "I give up. We're all gonna
Yeah.
die. The voices are
Yes.
right." And guess who picks up the backpack and tells him he has to keep going? It's Sarah. She
Yep.
says, "What about Ellis? You
Yep.
need to keep going. We're gonna be fine." We have never ever seen that man fallen. And in this particular episode, I counted 3 times. He falls 3 times, says he can't do it. He's freaked
Mm.
out by everything. And he says, "I think the voices are right and we're going to die." And it's Sarah who really gives him this courage to keep going, even though Sarah didn't want to go out there in the first place.
Mm-hmm. No,
So
that's
I
actually
think their
that's
bond kind of comes from that
yeah.
situation, right?
I 100% agree. Yeah, this trip that they went on, this journey that they went on, it definitely solidified their bond, and you can kind of see it slowly start to kind of develop. Where they start the trip off, where Boyd is very mistrusting of Sarah to the point where he's got her in freaking handcuffs. Then, as they slowly start to get on their journey, what the first thing he does is unlocks the cuffs. I mean, he realizes, he said, "I've seen this place turn very strong people into madness." I forget the exact line he uses, but I've seen this place mess with very strong people, and he obviously is thinking about his wife there. He's thinking, I've seen what this place has done to my wife. Maybe I shouldn't be so quick to condemn this poor girl, knowing what I know about this place, knowing that I know what it is capable of, what it is capable of making people do. So we slowly start to see him open himself up, where he does start to trust Sarah a little bit more as they start to go on this journey. He unlocks the cuffs. He starts kind of treating her as his equal, and you can see that they do start to develop that bond. Where, as you mentioned it beautifully, seeing Boyd in that one moment, that's as close as we've ever seen Boyd to rock bottom, to completely giving up. I mean, like you said, if Sarah wasn't there, he would have given up. He was spent. He was done. He thought this was it. And we get that great line from him talking about hope, and this place giving you just a little bit of hope, giving you just enough hope only to take it away from you. And that was something that you were talking a lot about as well, Ravener, in terms of this place not taking all of your hope. It leaves you just a little bit of enough hope to think that maybe you have a chance before it snatches that away from you. And that was one of the first instances we saw of that in season 1, where Boyd was seeing this place give him hope just to take it away.
Yeah, yeah, and going back to season 1 and rewatching, we're really seeing Boyd at his peak, at his most effective.
Yeah.
His reputation is at its peak. His esteem, his respect from the townsfolk, what he can really gather, his weight, his gravitas, all that is at his maximum. And even then, I mean,
He's
we
Mr.
still were
Fish and
kind of
Low.
exactly, yeah, but we still saw him uh, have to watch Ellis through binoculars just to make sure that
Yeah.
he was going to be safe and get in inside before sunset. One thing that I thought was interesting in season 3 comparatively was we did get some flashbacks, but we didn't get backstory. We saw backstory of Boyd and Abby. We saw backstory of well, I guess not too much of the Matthews family. We saw a few, um, but all of the flashbacks that we saw in season 3, Julie looking back and remembering Fatima,
Mm,
and then all
yeah.
this, those were things that we had already seen. So I thought it was
Yes.
I thought it was interesting that they didn't go back. And I know you had mentioned that the showrunners said that they're not going to spend a whole lot of time delving into each individual person's backstory as far as flashbacks and stuff. And I'm still seeing
Yeah.
people talk about, I know there's a lot of speculation whether Randall had a military background of one kind or another,
Yeah.
and it's almost transmuted itself till to the point where people are like hallucinating that they did see something like definitively stating that he was this or that. And I
Yes.
don't think
Yeah.
we did get any of that. But people
Mm-mm.
are like convinced, and believe me, I know that feeling because I was convinced that we had seen a scene with
The
Donna's
Donna
sister.
scene. Yes.
It's like
You
almost
weren't
like
the
a,
only one. You
yeah, it
weren't
was
the
like a,
only one, too.
and I think I might have gotten it mixed up with the Abby, the Boyd and Abby flashback,
Probably. Yeah.
but yeah. I was like, I was certain that we got to that scene, and of course, I actually had to go back and watch it to to even believe it myself because I just couldn't believe it. But yeah, it was funny though because we're hearing people say like, oh no, he said he was a Marine, but he wasn't a Marine, he was in the Army. I was like, I don't know if we saw that anywhere. And they're like, well,
Yeah.
notice he doesn't have sleeves. It's because he's got his Marine tattoo. He's Martin, and his tattoo is covered up. I was like, oh, I think honestly, we did see the one scene that we did see of Randall doing anything like that was right before he was going to try to uh, give himself electroshock with those paddles. Was he was working out? He was like doing pull ups and stuff. But I think
Mm.
that's really, I mean, you don't have TV, you don't have a whole lot to keep yourself occupied. Somebody like Randall
Yeah.
probably would work out,
And he's
find a
trying to get
way.
the space out of his head too. It seems like he was just trying to
Yeah.
do anything he could to to preoccupy his mind and his body because he's just being so overcome with these cicadas at that point.
Right, right. And
Um,
we saw, I mean, almost from our first introduction with Randall, whenever he had idle time, he was always at his worst when he had idle time and just let his brain wander. And that was when
yeah,
he came up with these ideas and theories and conspiracies and stuff. When he had a task, when he had something emergent,
when he
when he had
just
something,
goes,
he was always
yeah,
better. He was always the
yeah,
man to jump in and be helpful. He was not the disruptive um,
Mhm.
person that he was when he
he
had a lot of
sees,
time to sit there and even
yeah,
just sitting up there whittling. And that's
Mhm.
another thing that was so strange that and another thing that was abandoned. Remember that whittled, he was whittling up on the sitting on his lawn chair on the top of the bus,
Oh yeah.
and then
Mhm.
we finally did see what it was that he was whittling, and it looked for all the world like one of those totems, like one of the heads on the totems.
Mm.
Hmm.
Yeah,
When
yeah,
Boyd went on there later, when he right before his scene with Bacta, and he just kind of tosses it by. But
yeah.
it's weird. It's strange that, and maybe that'll come back. Maybe they'll call back to that in episode 4 or season 4, but maybe they'll never go back
Really.
to it again. Yeah.
And yeah, it's and we saw a few weird things with Randall in season two. Like I remember when I saw him pulling the seat out of the bus and bringing it up to the top. The whole fandom thought like, oh, is he setting up a trap? Is he gonna trap one of the monsters? Like, what's he doing? And it turned out to him being him just setting up a chair. It was literally nothing. But that's one of the things that's fun about this show, and what's infuriating about the show at the same time, where sometimes you want to dive super deep into every little thing we see, where, a lot of the little stuff that we see in the background is going to have meaning for the overall plot and it will kind of go somewhere. But a lot of this stuff, I do wonder how much of it is us kind of seeing shapes in the clouds kind of thing, where we're looking really hard to see something that just maybe isn't there. And that's what the show does beautifully, where it challenges us as the audience. That's why I love shows like this that are a little bit smart. They don't just hold the audience hand and give you all the answers right on the onset, kind of like Teacup did. That was one of the reasons why I really stopped, where I lost a little bit of interest in Teacup. That was kind of one of those shows where it does kind of just explain everything. It does not hold the audience hand in a sense, but it doesn't challenge the audience to really think like From does. And that's what I love about it, trying to differentiate, what should I spend a little bit more time on? What has a chance of having some deeper meaning? And what things are just pure tinfoil, and trying to kind of separate the two has always been fun. But even as David Ager brings up as well, the Mandela effect, exactly. That's the perfect example of the Mandela effect. Whether it's because you weren't the only one, Raven. I remember a lot of people in the chat saying that exact same thing, where they distinctly remembered seeing a scene of watching Donna's sister die. It was a phenomenon. It almost seemed like it was an epidemic of sorts, because there were so many people in the chat in season 2 saying it. They were like, no, I distinctly remember seeing that scene of Donna's sister dying, and that scene never existed. So this show, by its very mystery box nature and throwing so much at us, it probably is a little more likely to develop something like that Mandela effect, because it's just the very nature of the show, really. Let me catch up on these real quick, and then we will dive right back into all things, all the madness. Mother of Dragons for $4.99 says, it only shows me super stickers and super chats. That's strange. And we've been seeing other people mention this recently as well. People that have been trying to become members of the channel haven't quite been able to find the join button. And I for the life of me, never know what YouTube is doing. It seems like they're always changing something and tweaking with this and messing with that. But if you go to the main channel, the main home page on the channel, there should be a join button that you should see right towards the top. If it's not there, then I don't know what YouTube has been doing lately. I'm super sorry. I wish I had more. But yeah, I don't know what's going on. You're not the only one who has said this recently too, so it's definitely not on your end. It's not you. It's not anything you did. I don't know what's going on with YouTube lately. It's been a lot of people have been having trouble trying to find the join button for some reason, which I mean, freaking YouTube. Yeah, it could be a bug, as Amy Cinnamon Sweet says. Could be a bug. Could be them just tweaking the algorithm and messing with something a little bit, and it could return later. So if it's not there now, maybe it'll be there on the next stream that we do. But thank you so much, though. I appreciate you inquiring to becoming a member. That's super generous of you. Super generous indeed. We also have Wall Saint Tech for $5.67. Thank you so much, Wall Saint Tech. I figure the monsters are the townspeople. Sorry about the dated joke. Severance was filmed at an AT&T facility. No, again, it was good. And once it got explained to me, I very much appreciated it. So thank you, Wall Saint Tech, very much. I always like hearing some new jokes. There's nothing wrong with that. So thank you. I'm also showing my age in terms of not knowing it. My youth, I guess. But thank you so much. And in terms of the monsters, yeah, I mean, it seems like we got that kind of confirmation in the season 3 finale that the monsters were apparently the parents of the Ankui children. But this is where it gets a little interesting, and it gets a little bit sticky. Not sticky, but I mean, there's obviously something more going on, because clearly, very clearly, we have a lot more monsters than we do children. There's no possible way every single one of these monsters was a parent. There's only 7 Ankui children, 7 children that were sacrificed, just mathematically, it's impossible for every single monster to be a parent, because we're not seeing all of the monsters in the entire show depicted here in this one scene. There's tons of monsters that we've seen in other scenes and other episodes that aren't even down here. Granny monster isn't down here. The bride and groom monsters aren't down here. The magician-looking monster isn't down here. Jasmine isn't down here. There's a lot of monsters that aren't down here in this cave. So clearly there's something a little bit more going on. Yes, we know that the parents sacrificed their children, and that got them turned into monsters. But what exactly did the rest of these monsters come from? And I tend to agree. I do think it is the townsfolk. I wouldn't be too surprised if this was something where these parents, this group of these people, sacrificed their children, and in exchange for immortality. They were told they were going to be given immortality if they sacrificed their children, which could have been the man in yellow's manipulation from the very beginning. He could have been the one who convinced them of that. But I very much would not be surprised, at least, if we found out that the parents sacrificed their children, they turned into these monsters as some form of curse, but them and the entire town got cursed. And I feel like that would explain why we're seeing some of the things we're seeing in terms of how these monsters are dressed. If the entire town got cursed along with these parents, then that would explain why we see things like a nurse monster, a little cowboy monster, a lady that probably worked at the diner in the town of Fromville monster, a milkman monster, and on and on and on. We're seeing all of these weird kind of monsters that are very, very specific in terms of their attire. And I think that could potentially explain that, why we're seeing all of these monsters and way more monsters than we see actual children. Maybe it wasn't just the parents that got cursed and turned into these monsters.
Mhm.
Maybe when they did this sacrifice, it cursed the entire town. And maybe that's why we even see people as young as a high school student that seems to be in a Letterman sweater here.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
again, I imagine this monster probably isn't old enough to be one of the parents of these Unkui children. But if the entire town got cursed, that could explain that. But that's just, I don't know. I
True.
think that's where maybe it's
Perhaps it
going.
was a democratic vote, and it was the entire town voting for
Voted
sacrifice.
on it. That's a very interesting possibility as well, where maybe it wasn't just a byproduct of the entire town getting cursed. Maybe the entire town was in on the sacrifice. They might have only sacrificed a handful of children. There maybe only a handful of these people were actual parents, but maybe they were all in on it. The entire town was in on it in
Mhm.
terms of some sort of cult like thing. That's actually a very good
Maybe they
idea. I
did
can tell
sorta
you.
like, remember season 1 where they say you have to choose if you want to live in Colony House or the town?
Yeah.
Maybe they did a similar thing where it is a democratic vote, even though they're not your children, one by one, you have to make the choice.
Vote to do this or not, maybe. Yeah, no,
Mhm.
that I think that could very well be possible. I feel like it would at least explain why we're seeing the very specific things we're seeing with these monsters in terms of, again, we see some dressed as mechanics and all these, some seem to be dressed as like boat captains. Again, the nurse, the milkman, yada yada. It seems like these are the inhabitants of the entire town, like the inhabitants, the townsfolk of this entire town got turned into these monsters, for lack of better terms. So no, I really like that theory, and I think that could potentially be why we're seeing so many more monsters as opposed to only 7 on Kui children. Obviously, they're not all parents, but they could have all been from the same town and all have gone cursed. And I like your idea, PM. Maybe they were all in on it. I like that. That's very possible. Very possible indeed. Thank you so much, Wall Saint Tick, for the 567. And we got Ravener as well, gifting 5 memberships. Holy cow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 memberships gifted. That is absolutely incredible. Let me
Ah,
pull this up.
Mhm.
ah.
He is a generous lord, our lord.
He is. He's a benevolent a benevolent raven.
Benevolent, generous, and humble.
What do they call it? Noblesse oblige. I have to do what I can do. Amanda Roy, Lorraine Chisholm, Mostly Insane, Elle Evans, and Augustus Quimby. Excellent.
Oh wow.
New
Awesome.
members?
I couldn't find it for some reason. It wasn't showing me. I see it now though. Yes, Amanda Roy, Lorene. Awesome. Mostly insane. L. Evans, Augustus. Wow, awesome. Thank you so much. Welcome
Ah,
each and every one of you to becoming members of the channel. Of course, we got a bunch of all new Fromville emojis that we recently just put up. I like to keep them fresh. So feel free to make use of those. And thank you so much, Ravener, for the gifted memberships.
nah, man,
I
glad to
have
do it. Glad to do it. I was just sad that people can't. I posted in the chat and obviously posted again the link to the membership part. But that's been happening for the last few days. People are like literally
weird, yeah.
trying to pay money, and it's like, well, yeah, YouTube's not allowing it. It's like, gee whiz,
I
guys.
know it's one of those things where I promise it's not me. If I would I would never turn anybody away from becoming a member of the channel. Everybody, of course, is welcome. But yeah, fucking YouTube, man. YouTube just screws with the whole format sometimes, and sometimes things disappear, then they show back up. It's chaotic to say the least. But thank you, Raven. I very much appreciate the gifted.
Glad to do it, man. Glad to do it.
Awesome stuff. And we got Crazy Mad for $9.99 as well. Thank you so much, Crazy Mad. And I think actually with the 5 gifted memberships from Ravener and from the new member of Blue becoming a member, that is 6 memberships we've gotten in this stream. That officially opens up 1 new emoji slot. I was looking earlier when I was making these new emojis, and it shows you it always tells you how many memberships you're away from unlocking another emoji slot, because that's how the emoji slots work. The more members a channel gets, the more emojis they allow you to use. And I remember distinctly seeing that I was 6 members away from unlocking another new emoji tier. We got 6 in this stream. So after the stream ends, guys, anyone who is a member, or even if you're not a member, everybody's welcome to put a suggestion in. After the stream ends, hop into the comment section and leave a suggestion for what you want the new emoji to be, and I will pick one of your picks at random, and I will make an emoji out of it. But if anybody has any suggestions for what you guys want this new emoji to be, please leave your suggestions in the comment section after the stream is over. And again, I will pick one of them at random. But thank you so much, guys. Jim emote now. Remember Jim. Honestly, Jim, it might be Jim. If I see a vote or two for Jim in the comment section, Jim might deserve it. I don't know if I've ever had a Jim emoji on the channel. Now that I think back, I don't think I've ever made a Jim emoji. I think he's one of the few characters I don't even have an emoji made of. So yeah, if I see a Jim recommendation in the comment section, it could potentially be there. Man in Yellow in the Cadillac says, don't even worry about it. Yeah, I got another Man in Yellow one that's a little bit different than this one. I might swap it out. I think I might like the other Man in Yellow one a little bit better than this one. Boo to Jim, says Crazy Mad. Ripped throat Jim emoji, says Xavier Anderson. That could be a good one. His the whole throat just ripped open in that moment. I could probably create an emoji out of that, I think. I'm pretty sure it's a good still. I think there's a good still of that. I'm not gonna yeah, right here. There's actually a pretty decent still of that. I could probably make one out of this, although I don't know how YouTube is with the whole gore thing. I've seen some channels get in trouble showing too much gore, so I don't know if I'll actually be able to do that.
In emoji form, it would be small enough. I don't even think that YouTube would be able to detect it.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think you're probably right. But awesome stuff, guys. Yeah, leave your suggestions, and we will. We have one new emoji that we are going to be adding. And we also have Crazy Mad for the $9.99. Thank you so much, Crazy Mad. If you're on an iPhone, it doesn't show up. You have to get on a laptop, and it'll come up. No problem. Try that. Also, Raven and Jeremy are the best people I've ever met. Stand up, fellas. Well, thank you so much for that, Crazy Mad. Crazy Mad loves giving us compliments because he knows we hate compliments. So thank you for that, my friend. It's always, it's never awkward at all. But appreciate
very kind of you.
And yeah, very kind of you. It is very kind of you. I was actually talking to Crazy Man last night about a huge surprise. One of the biggest surprises I've seen in a very long time, and that is a Star Wars show actually being halfway good in Skeleton Crew. I was very surprised about that. We were discussing that a little bit. And I'm going to check out this second episode and see if it was just a fluke first episode. But it really, I totally understand why a lot of people are talking about it in terms of having a Goonies Star Wars kind of vibe. It really does feel like Goonies or Stranger Things in a Star Wars setting. And again, I've only saw the first episode, but it was surprisingly fun to watch. I can't believe I'm even saying this, considering how shit Star Wars has been over the last few years. But that's neither here nor there. Sorry for the tangent. Thank you so much, Crazy Mad, though, for the $9.99. And thank each and every one of you for the super chats and for the memberships. This woe is for you. Whoa! Awesome stuff. All right, let's see what we got here in the chat. One of the monsters will get pregnant and give birth to Jim, like with Smiley. Oh shit! Imagine that. Jesus Christ! Imagine if we saw the role just completely reversed, where one of the monsters gave birth to freaking Jim, and we just saw Jim just grow super fast out of that little fucking squid thing.
Oh my gosh.
And speaking of, I guess I'd like to ask each and every one of you that, and Ravener and PM as well, because I've seen a lot of comment sections, a lot of comments in my comment section of people believing that this episode gave us the answer as to what the red symbol was. We've been wondering what this red symbol in the cave was for so long. We see the jade symbol right next to it, and I do think the jade symbol is it might have been influenced by the yellow sign from the Yellow King, but we'll get into that in a minute. But a lot of people have been thinking that this right here, this imagery of Smiley was the symbol on the caves, the red symbol in the cave, the one that a lot of people have been wondering what exactly is. We haven't really gotten anything definitive in terms of what the red symbol is. What do you guys think? Do you guys like the theory that is going on out there right now, where this image of Smiley is supposed to be what that red symbol is a representation of, or do you think that red symbol is a representation of something else we haven't seen yet?
Something else. The scale and the drawing compared to the size of the people in the drawing, the creature in the drawing was way bigger than the people. I think this is another instance, just like when people saw the red thing and the blood drops when Randall was laying
Yeah.
on the ambulance. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't like 100%. I don't think anybody can 100% definitively say no, absolutely not. But I'll say 99.9 repeating, absolutely not.
99.9. Okay. No, that's interesting. That is interesting. What about you, PM? When you look at the
Mhm.
Smiley imagery there, do you think that this could potentially be the representation of that weird red symbol, or do you
Mhm.
think the red symbol is going to mean something else?
I can definitely see how people come to that conclusion. I
Mhm.
tend to believe no, just because it seems so grand, right? And it's
Yeah.
illustrated in a different way. And I think the grandness of it all, to me, I think it might be another form that Men in Yellow takes. So maybe his
Oh,
true form. Um, I would hope for something like that so that we could have him shown in a grand supernatural light.
that would be pretty interesting, and that would also kind of tie back to the King in Yellow. I mean, and we're getting a little more into kind of Lovecraftian Hastur and King in Yellow kind of lore here, but that's also kind of a part of it in terms of not knowing what the King in Yellow, what Hastur's true form, his real form, like his actual natural real form, not quite knowing what it is. And even people going as far as to think that Narlepitep and Hastur are one and the same. That the Hunter of the Dark, Narlepitep, the incredibly powerful cosmic deity in Lovecraftian lore, some people think that Narlepitep and Hastur, the King in Yellow, are one and the same. But no,
Mhm.
I tend to agree with both of you guys. I don't think the smiley imagery is the representation of this symbol. Like you said, PM, I totally understand people making that connection and making that distinction. There's a little bit of similarities there. I mean, I could totally understand a little, a little bit of that way of thinking in terms of the way the symbol is, the red, the way Smiley looked when he stood up with the whole casing around him. I definitely understand why that theory has become popular. It has some merit to it. But I tend to agree with you guys. I think that this red symbol means something else. But I like that idea that you mentioned, PM, in terms of this potentially maybe being a representation of the man in yellow and maybe of his like actual real form. Maybe he does have a real form. We have seen that shape shifting very
Mhm.
much is a thing on this show. The monsters shapeshift into the crazy monster form that they have. So how do
Mhm.
we know the man in yellow also doesn't have something similar where he has a form that he can shapeshift into? Maybe that is his true form. Because it seems like the monsters were, of course, human at first, but after they were turned into monsters, it seems like the monster form was their more natural form, their natural state. We see when they were sleeping, they revert to their monster form. When Smiley gets killed, reverts to the monster form, not in the human form. So it's almost like after they got cursed to turn into these things, the monster form was their main form.
Yeah.
Maybe the man in yellow will be similar in the sense where maybe he has another form that hasn't been revealed yet. But yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think it's Smiley.
Yeah, that's a good point. If I do say so myself, I'm taking some humility here, training from Lord Ravener.
No, it's good stuff. It is good stuff. And again, when we see this here, we see the man in yellow. The first time we see him, this big red aura behind him. Like that's, I feel like that's also maybe a little bit telling.
A great
In terms
point.
of
That could be telling his like telling us, look, this is not his final form. Good point.
maybe, maybe this red is a little more indicative of him in terms of just a red background, and maybe it's again it's very similar red to the tone that we see in the cave. So yeah, maybe that's an extra little hint there that this red symbol that we're seeing in the cave, maybe it is a symbol for the man in yellow.
Yeah, I
Maybe
mean
it
that
is.
that was my first instinct though when we saw him though. It was that the time for gentle manipulation and whispering and like like trying to uh like use people as pawns and puppets. It seems like whatever discovery that Jade and Tabitha made out there with the
Mm,
violin and the ankuis that forced his hand kind of, and that he had to take
yeah,
a physical form to start affecting the world and working
it's getting
against.
more direct now.
Yeah, yeah, he can't mess around with subtlety anymore. It's showtime for the man in yellow. I can't wait to see what he actually does from here. Because if he is in a physical form,
Yes.
I mean, we need all the definitions. We're right back to where we were with the monsters. Trying to define what their powers, what they can do, what they can't do, find the rules. I want to, we have to get the rules for the man in yellow. What can he do? What can't he do? We know he's very strong, but that's really pretty much all we know. What
Yep.
else can he not do? People had brought up, is he affected by talismans? Is that why Julie was urging Jim to return to the town? Maybe he might be able to
Mm.
get into a talisman protected area. Don't know. I mean, I guess we'll find out very soon.
We
Um,
shall. And I hope we do find out early, like you mentioned. I hope it's not something that gets drawn out. And this was something that could very well be a possibility. I mean, we see how sparingly they use characters like the boy in white, like these mysterious characters. They don't tend to have a whole lot of screen time with these characters. Now, could the boy in white's case have been because the actor himself was getting a little bit too older, so they just didn't want they wanted to use him as sparingly as possible because they just didn't have an answer yet for why he looks so different. But I've also wondered this going into season 4 is how much screen time is the man in yellow actually going to get. I very much want it to be one of those things like you mentioned where they let us know as an audience, they let us know super early on just who exactly this man in yellow is and the full scope of what they're up against. Because that's just we're talking just basic storytelling points now at this point. Where when you introduce a villain, one of the main things you need to do, one of the first things you need to do, is to establish to the audience who this villain is and what they're capable of. The audience needs to know the threat level that their heroes are up against. It's just basic fundamentals of storytelling. So I really hope it's not one of those things that they kind of drag out where they don't give us a whole lot about the man in yellow until like way later in season 4. I really hope we learn within the first 2 or 3 episodes at the most just who exactly he really is. Is this really the main villain? And what is he capable of? What is his power level? They don't have to showcase every single ability that he has, but just a single feat to kind of showcase what realm, what kind of area, what kind of power level we're potentially dealing with. Like you mentioned, we saw that he's very strong physically. ripping Jim's throat out with one freaking hand like it was mincemeat was, again, a big indication that he is physically very strong. But we know
Mm.
nothing else about this guy. What other abilities does he have? Does
But
he
he is
have
the
any other
voice,
abilities?
so we have to assume that he's got that. He's dialed into that
Exactly.
aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's a good point. We know that he is the voice on the other end of the radio. Yes. So, like you said, that does showcase that he's at least capable of tapping into Fromville's electronics, their phones, their radios, things like
Yeah.
that. So, like, it does. It's, I don't know. For me, it just points. I very much think he is the main villain, and I know that's another thing that is
Mhm.
up for debate. Is he the main villain? Is he not the main villain? I just feel like, they've been setting this character up since season one. Season one, they have been setting this character up. If they are only planning to do 5 seasons, do they even have time to set up another big bad villain on top of this? I just feel like there's not enough time for that if they're really only doing 5 seasons, and
Mm.
especially considering they spent 3 seasons setting this guy up. So again, I'll be very surprised if he's not the main villain.
Yeah, I'd like to see. I mean, and funny enough, the last time we saw something that had seemingly like authority or rank over the monsters was here in the at the RV. Um,
The cicada entity, yeah.
yeah, yeah. When the monsters were approaching the RV, and suddenly they kind of backed off because Daddy was home, and that's when you
Mhm.
heard the knocking. I mean, it might just be very very unfortunate timing or placement that the RV just happened to land right where he happens to hang out. But I think
Maybe.
it's every bit as likely that he's the if he's a voice on the radio, it's every bit as likely as that he was the person knocking. And they can establish that very easily with a nighttime scene. They're going to have to do one eventually anyway. Have him, at least he'll be able to see if he can walk around at night completely unscathed. See the level of deference that the monsters show to him. Does he really outrank them, and almost to what extent does he
Mhm.
outrank them? It's not like, I mean, is he like the lord of them? I mean, will they really, will he be able to give them orders and command them,
Yeah, can
or
he
is
control them at
Mhm.
all? Like, does
that
he
kind
even
of
have
stuff?
any control over them? That's a good
Yeah.
point. Like, how much, what degree of influence does he have on the monsters, and how much control and what degree of influence does he have on Fromville as a whole? Like, are we potentially talking where it's he's as powerful enough where it was him that destroyed the Matthews family home? Did he do that himself? Like, is he that
Mm.
level of powerful? Did he send the storm to Colony House, kind of thing? That's what I'm hoping they establish early on in season 3. Tell us exactly who this guy is and if he really is in control of all these things.
Mm. And he said, that Jade sure can play. So obviously, even though he wasn't physically present in that scene, he was at least within earshot.
He
That's
clearly has some kind of omnipotence
Mhm.
where he knows things that are going on in Fromville. He doesn't actually need to be within, like you said, eyesight or earsight to know what's going on here. So that does kind of at least hint to the point that he has some level of omnipotence where he is, a higher being. And
Yeah.
this is an interesting question as well. And I'd love to get everybody's take on this, PM and Ravener, and in the chat as well. And I think there could maybe just be a simple answer to it, but why the man in yellow is not Top Gun. Miranda painted him as a young man, yet he is old, old, decrepit. Why is that? And that's one thing that we noticed from the Miranda paintings is he's got kind of he's kind of got he's all disheveled a little bit. His suit certainly isn't as dapper as it once was, and he's got gray hair. He's got old gray hair. Whereas in the painting of him, he's very much got he's got a little bit of a younger look. He's got that black hair, and I think this
hmm.
could be attributed to what we saw with the boy in white. That we're seeing the boy in white, even he is getting older. Even he is
Mhm.
aging now, and he straight up said, "Everything is changing here." I think that could be the difference why we see the man in yellow look a little bit younger in the painting, as opposed to 30 years later what he looks like right now. This place has been changing. It's changing where the boy in white is getting older. Maybe it did the same thing with the man in yellow, and I very much think that's probably the most likely answer. When we look at the boy in white and we look at the man in yellow, it just seems like they are. it seems like they are kind of yin to the yang. One's yin to the other's yang, where these are the two kind of sides, for lack of a better term, the two forces that are at play in the distance. We've been wondering, a lot of us have been wondering, at least ever since early on, with all the weird chess metaphors that we have been getting. Is there some kind of grand cosmic chess game being played in the background? And I very much think that is the case. And I think it's being played between the man in white, the man in yellow, and the boy in white, where the boy in white is actively trying to help people break this cycle and save the Onkoi children and put an end to all of this, maybe. And maybe the man in yellow is the exact opposite. He wants these cycles to continue to keep going on because that's where he draws his power from. This is his realm. As you mentioned earlier, PM, the king in yellow, Carcosa is his realm. That is his domain. That is his place. And I could very much see this being a little bit similar, where the man in yellow, Fromville, is his domain. Fromville is his kingdom, as it were. This is where he draws and derives his strength from. So I think that could potentially be what's going on, and maybe that's why we're seeing the man in yellow look a little bit older now as opposed to this painting. Things are changing.
Yep, I'm totally on board with that. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I'm really waiting for the, as we get a better definition of what the Man in Yellow's powers are. I really want them to define that he is the counter to, or like he is the counterpoint to the boy in white. And I'm going to say it again just so I can dig myself deeper and be on record. I don't think we're going to see the boy in white in boy form in season 4. I think he's going to change into something different.
He's going to be even older again, like older than what we saw him in season 3, because he's already looking older. But you think he's going to be older than that even?
Yeah, and well, we saw him getting. We saw him slightly older when he was talking to Victor, and all of that was way before Jade and Tabitha had their great revelations. Now, if that great revelation was the impetus to to the Man in Yellow's aging and changing, I would imagine that those same rules might apply to the boy in white. Even if he stays in boy form, or if they keep what's his name, Vox Smith, I think, or Vox something. If they keep him as the same, if they keep the same kid as the boy in white, even though he's growing, I think they'll definitely establish him as the these two people are striving for different goals within Fromville, and they are like the enemies, the two opposites.
Yeah, they are. It definitely seems like a whole, one yin to the other yang, opposite sides of the same coin, as it were. The two forces that are kind of in opposition to one another. But what about you, PM? When you look at the man in yellow, where do you see his character going, or do you have any, like, when you see? I know it's kind of hard to go on because there's so much we just don't know about him yet. But what are some of your hopes for season 3? Do you what do you want to be established, and do you think he is a potential opposite to the boy in white?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think that he presents as the opposite, even in the way that he looks. The boy in white is young and he's clean. He wears white, the color of purity and innocence, while the man in yellow is old, cosmic decay, right? He's modeled to me, in my eyes, after Hastor. And so, cosmic decay, you look at his suit and the way that he's dressed, and you can assume that at some point it was great, but it has decayed. It has been, torn and gotten dirty over time. And that is Carcosa. It is something that once upon a time might have been great, but now is fading, it's decaying. So they're completely opposites. I think that in season 4, we're going to get the Great War. It's going to be a war between the men in yellow and the boy in white. Everything's going to come to a head, and we're going to finally see them battle out with their players, because I do agree this is a cosmic game. We're going to see them come to a conclusion. Is boy in white going to lose again? Because I do suspect that he has been losing. Or is it this time that he finally has the players and what he needs to win? Um, I'm really hopeful for season 4 and for the Men in Yellow to finally show us what he can do, right?
I can't freaking wait. Like I am super hyped and excited for season 4 now. And again, heading into the season 3 finale, I was not skeptical, but I was at least curious, cautiously curious to see, how are they going to wrap this up? I mean, there's so many storylines that are still hanging in the balance. I knew they weren't going to be able to tie all of them up, but I was at least hoping to get some definitive answers. And the two definitive answers I was hoping to get, I actually got. I thought they need to solve the Fatima thing, the Fatima pregnancy. This needs to get concluded in this season. This is not something that they should carry over to season 4. So I'm very glad we got a definitive end to Fatima's pregnancy storyline. Now, I definitely get the feeling that there's probably still going to be some kind of connection that Fatima might have to Smiley, or maybe even to the monsters in general in season 4, that maybe they can exploit at some point. Because I think it's very awkward or very telling, maybe, that when Fatima was giving birth to this Smiley pod, she somehow managed to gain access to all of his memories. And that's how we get the origin from the monsters in the first place. She was able to kind of tap in to his memories, whether she tapped into the hive mind or whether she tapped into just Smiley's memories. She clearly got that information from this pregnancy. But I'm wondering if it's going to be a step further, very similar to the cicadas in season 2 carrying over to season 3, where I think a lot of us, or at least some of us, assumed that it wasn't going to be over. It just seemed like it was way too easy that Julie, Randall, and Mari woke up after Boyd destroyed the music box, and they all kind of just live happily ever after. I think it was too clean. So definitely had a feeling that the cicada thing was not going to be over, and Julie, Randall, and Mari might have some kind of residual side effect, residual after effect to being in that coma, and they very much do. We're seeing it's very much not over for them. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see something similar happen with Fatima here from season 3 to season 4, where her accessing Smiley's memories, her kind of tapping into, again, maybe the hive mind or whatever you want to call it. Because I get the feeling the monsters do maybe operate on some kind of low level hive mind basis, where one of them learns something, they all know it, kind of thing, maybe. So I very much think that we're going to see, maybe anyway, some kind of connection that is still established by Fatima and Smiley in season 4. But like you said, back to your point, super excited heading into season 4. Like, they gave us so much interesting stuff in this finale, and then capped it off beautifully with this Man in Yellow character. And then, especially for people like us, or for anybody else who is deep into Lovecraftian and the King in Yellow, Robert Chambers, storytelling. If you like that style of storytelling, I imagine season 4 is even more exciting for you heading into it, just knowing that it does seem like we're heading more and more into that kind of cosmic eldritch horror kind of phase, and more and further and further away from the sci-fi. And again, I know I say that a lot, but it's because I'm super excited about that. I was really nervous that we could potentially get just like your average sci-fi answers to a lot of these things at the beginning. But now, the closer that we get and the more that we see, it definitely seems like this is firmly supernatural territory and not sci-fi. So I'm loving it. I'm super excited for 4. Bring
Yeah,
on 4. It's like we have to wait, though.
yeah, and I think, I mean, and we had talked about it before as well. We think that the pace for season 4, and if season 5 is indeed the final season, that they're really going to have to deliver a lot of answers at a much more rapid pace. Wrap up all the, establish this guy as the big bad, get it all ready, and then lead us into season 5 in a way that they can wrap it. I mean, we've seen what they could do uh, in a very short time, tying a lot of these divergent threads into
Mm,
something that turned out to be actually pretty good. So yeah, it'll definitely be interesting, but I have a feeling that the pace will have to pick up. They'll have to give a lot more. It's also that there's a big question. Is budgetarily right now. I mean, it is pretty bare bones. It's
Yeah.
not a whole lot of special effects, a lot of practical effects, and maybe some sets. But even then, the sets are somewhat established, and they're able to use the same settings season after season, so it's not like they're tearing stuff down and changing a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So every once in a while, they can do something like smashing the Matthews house, which was super cool. And I think they used a crane, right? They just basically used like
Yep.
a end loader with a bucket and just crushed the house down in, and then just edited out the crane, the end loader
The other
for
building
that
on the
scene.
other side. Yeah, and that was one thing a lot of people were pointing out, between, from season 1 to season 2, the vast difference to the medical clinic, and even I didn't notice it until I kind of went back and really took a closer look. I noticed the difference from the root cellar, which was a similar difference, but in season 1, you see that just random abandoned building across the street from medical clinic. We see it in a few scenes where we see that angle of the front door of the medical clinic, and you can clearly see this just abandoned building over on the other side of the road. And then you get to season 2, and you get to every angle of the medical clinic, and you can't see that abandoned building anywhere. It's nothing but woods across the street now. And then, like you said, we later found out that they literally moved the entire building, like the whole school, the whole elementary school that they turned the medical clinic into. They attached that bitch to a giant fucking crane and just moved the whole fucking building to the other side of town. Because, like you said, this is a real town. That's why they don't really have to go and do a whole lot of building of sets every year. This is an actual practical set that they're filming on with an entire abandoned town that they have converted into their set. So there's not a whole lot of, they're not spending a ton of money of their budget on, constructing these sets, the upkeep from, the winter, making sure everything's sturdy and in working order, building a few small set pieces here and there to add on. But for the majority, the bulk of the work is done. It's already there. So that's one thing they very much have going on in their favor. They just have this beautiful set, this beautiful town that's actually kind of big. I mean, it doesn't look that big on the show because they do a really good job of only showing like 2 streets. But if you look at the overhead view of Fromville, like the town that they actually film in, it's actually pretty freaking massive. Like it's pretty huge. And when you see like how far away Colony House really is from the town, it's like holy shit. They really do a good job in post production, making this thing look like an actual small town where everything's kind of close to one another. Because it's really not like that when you look at the actual layout. And of course, the one time I need it, I'm not going to have the actual layout in this
Really?
folder.
I thought everything was close together and they just because they walk so much and they kind of like
Mm.
get there quickly.
Let me get this photo because I got a good photo that shows the overhead, like the overview of the town, and I was super surprised, like when I saw how far Colony House in particular
Yeah.
was, like from
Then
everything else, like it's super far.
Yeah. Then there was that one scene where when Elgin was driving Ellis down into the clinic after he'd gotten stabbed.
Mhm.
It
Yeah,
seemed like I mean, that seemed like they were driving for a little bit,
yeah,
crashing through brush and stuff, and the path seemed to have been overgrown, but it's hard to say how many minutes it was. Probably not too many minutes, and at what
yeah.
speed Elgin was driving and that kind of stuff. Um, because at any other time, I mean, Donna's humping rocks down from presumably Colony House
Oh yeah.
to encase Dale.
Yeah, she was hauling those rocks. She's a good leader. She does the work when the work needs to be done.
Yep,
She
and
Do you
nobody's
does.
remember
volunteering
when
to
she
help
was
either. Yeah.
running down the hill to scream at Boyd because Tian Chang had died?
Yep, yep.
Yeah,
She
so
definitely did
that's a
that.
hill. It's a huge hill because we really got to see her like running down, and it was a long
Yeah,
way.
you're right. It was kind of a big hill. Shit, where is this photo? I know I have it. This is here we go. There we go. I got it. This will give us it gives you a little bit of a better kind of view of just how massive this town really is, and just how again just how far freaking Colony House is away from the actual town, and the beautiful trickery of post production and the things that they can do uh, with filming nowadays. This is how big the town really is. Look how far away Colony House is from everything else. Colony House is
Oh,
way
wow.
back here. And here's everything else. Here's the diner. Here's one of the roads. Here's Cautry's church,
Wow.
Sarah's house. Um, there's the bar. It's a lot bigger
Yeah,
than
So
wow.
can
it
you
feels.
imagine her hauling those rocks from Colony House all the way down?
Crazy, right?
Right, right.
It's massive, man. It's just imagine how cool it must be to film in a place like this.
Yeah, I mean, just from what the show has given us, I always envisioned Colony House almost being as though that loop road, it wasn't there.
Yeah,
Like I could imagine Colony House being right on the other side, on the other side of that north-south road
mhm.
that were, right next to the pool. But yeah, as though that loop road wasn't even there, and it was just scrunched in closer. But yeah, man, that is crazy. Very interesting.
It is.
And it
Yeah,
would,
you can see you see the control tower back there. Because when this picture first surfaced online, people were like, "Oh shit, there's some kind of tower back there on From," and I'm like, and it took a little while for people to realize, like, no, this is not a shot of the show. This is just a shot of where the show is filmed. So when you see all these weird buildings in the background, that does not mean they're in there in Fromville. Because a lot of people, when this thing first, surfaced, they were like, "Oh shit, there's a tower back there. There's a building back there." It's like, no, 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 no. This is just where they film. We know that there's not a big sea surrounding Fromville, so that should have been the dead giveaway. But no, I can understand why people at least got excited. It's kind of funny. But yeah, no, it's just crazy when you see just how massive this freaking place really is, and how well they utilize it too. They can barely see it, but this is some of their production trailers. This is where the actors and the directors and stuff, where they get into their wardrobe and all that shit. That's usually when you see this place in full bang, you'll see all the cast and crew will have all their cars parked here. There's one right there, and yeah, this is it. And there's a
Nice.
little box
You
for each
could really
fucking
see
truck
how
and cast.
Donna had her kingdom away from the
Yeah,
town because it seemed
yeah,
like it was so close. But
yeah.
have you said if you would live in Colony House or the town? I'm sure you have.
Oh,
I just haven't heard.
yeah, we did. We did. Somebody asked this a little while back, and it's tough. I mean, because I can see the merits for both. I mean, part of me wouldn't mind having some fun and just partying over at Colony House, but then again, I do like my structure. I do like and maybe contributing to something. So I think I chose town last time. But no, that's interesting. Let's get everybody's opinion on this. Everybody in the chat, let us know if you got stuck in Fromville and you got to the choosing ceremony, very beginning of the season. Where would you choose to live? Would you go to Colony House or would you choose to live in the town? Let's see what you guys say in the chat and on the panel as well. I mean, what about you, PM? Where would you go if you were faced with that choice? Are you
Oh,
going to
yeah.
Colony House or are you going
No
to the town?
way. No way am I getting close to Colony House. I would go to the church, lock myself in the church. No
There
way.
you go. There you go. And that's
How about
another thing. Like I
Lord? Is
do like.
Lord gonna be Lord of Colony House?
Nah, man. In my younger years, it would have been a lot more appealing. But I like my solitude. Until I get Lady
Yeah.
Ravener here. I was wondering though, like, because they don't just. If a solo person just shows up and says, "Okay, I want to live in the town," they make they still
Where
make
they
people
put them.
bunk up. Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
don't want to have roommates either. So, but even then,
Mm.
I'm wondering um that was one of the kind of like funny things that we laughed about, because Donna has her room, Ellis and Fatima had their room, Victor had his whole attic to himself. Certain people had
Mhm.
whole rooms to themselves, meanwhile other people are out on the out on the couch
On the
banging
couch,
Oh
a foot away
God.
from other people.
Oh
um
God.
but nah, man, I think even then, just the fact that I get, even in town, even if I was forced to bunk up with Kenny and Tian Chen, at least I might
yeah,
have my own room
it's
that I could lock the
preferable.
door.
Yeah,
I need to
I
get
need my
away.
own space.
They
Yeah,
say,
I
man,
need my
yeah,
own space. I couldn't be living on top of each other like sardines, like they do
yeah,
in Calling House. I need my own space, my
yeah,
own alone space
yeah.
sometimes.
And they say like extroverts recharge in a crowd and introverts recharge in solitude. And I'm definitely somebody that, a crowd I can do, but it's very mentally taxing just to
Mhm.
keep track of.
Really?
So, oh yeah, yeah. So I'm very comfortable in solitude, and just it
Okay.
doesn't bother me at all. And people, don't you get lonely? Not at all. I keep to myself, mind my own business, take care of everything I need to take care of. Very
Mhm.
independent, but yeah, I don't miss group anything in any in any way at all.
I'm just,
I'm kind
I'm
of
sorry,
used
I'm
to
just
both.
laughing because you're like, you're so humble, Lord. You're like, I'm with the best company. Myself.
Yes,
Myself, yeah.
I keep to myself. Yeah, I don't care about anybody. Well, like, I don't care about my neighbors or whatever. They can do whatever they want, just as long as they leave me to do, to myself. It's fine. Very comfortable in that
Mm.
mode.
I would say I'm pretty comfortable in both modes. Like I have no problem spending alone time, and I am one of those people where I won't get bored. I'll always find something to occupy my time, even if it's just thinking exercises or just thinking about shit. I don't mind alone time. There's nothing wrong with being alone and with
Mhm.
your thoughts and contemplating. But I'm also comfortable in a group setting as well. So I certainly don't mind either. But yeah, I'm definitely with you guys in terms of the colony house is a little too much. There's a little too much
Yeah.
going on, a little too much funky stuff going on there. You got people banging on couches. I'd be afraid to sit down anywhere. You don't know what you're sitting in, kind of thing. Like the
Yeah.
place just looks a little. It doesn't look very sterile, to say the least.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's
I would
all
go with
about being alone. I travel alone. I go and I will plan my vacations alone. Like it's
yeah.
too much sometimes. It's really too much.
Well, we saw
Sometimes you just
Fatima.
need to be alone.
Yeah, when she was having morning sickness, um, she was, in that bathroom. There's no toilet paper in there. There's just two or three hand towels stacked up on the back of the toilet seat. So I could not imagine being in there with 30 people using. Presumably, there's more than one toilet in there, but I don't
Mm.
know how they're wiping. I don't know what they're doing in there.
Right?
I don't know,
What's
man.
going on there, man? That's the thing. Like, you see all the people living at Colony House, and we saw that, like you said, that freaking one scene of they're all banging trying to get into that one fucking bathroom. You mean to tell me there's only one bathroom in this whole fucking place? Like, oh, look at all these rooms. There's got to be another fucking bathroom out there, or hell, build a fucking outhouse at that point. Dig a fucking latrine pit. Do something. Yeah, it's just that's big for me. Like I need to be someplace that's clean and sanitary. Like I could not be in that colony house of environment. It just the filth alone would just make me throw up. I couldn't do it.
Mhm.
I'm not some germaphobe. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm not some Howie Mandel germaphobe that can't shake people's hands or anything like that. That's not me. But I also need a clean environment. I need a clean setting. Colony house just looks way too fucking dirty. way too dirty for my liking. Let's see what the chat has been saying. Where would you guys stay? Colony House or the town? Let's see what we got. We got Jossborn for the town. I wouldn't want to be around all the sex parties and shit. Yeah, me neither. That would get very old very quick. Especially when you see, you see that sex party they were having in episode 2. Those two people that were banging on that couch, literally 9 feet away from Ethan, they were like in their 60s. They were fucking old as fuck. Like, it was so gross.
Right,
It
right,
was
yeah,
not.
yeah.
Yeah,
For
I was
every
horrified with a
It really was.
child. That's messed
Yeah.
up.
yeah
It was-
for every Trudy, for every one Trudy, there's probably like 5 Dales.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, as fun as Trudy and the Alabaster Dragon could potentially be, it's not worth the fucking 5 Tillies that are running around.
Clara.
Yeah, Colony House, safety in numbers. Well, that's the thing. I think that I feel like there's safety in numbers in both places. I get what you're saying. At night, maybe there is a better safety in numbers in Colony House because they're all within one building. But no, I could see it. But again, I just couldn't do it. There's just too much funk going on at Colony House for me. Too much funk. Let's see what else we got. Speaking of Trudy would piss me off. So down, says Albert Cunningham. Yeah, hey, maybe not everybody's a Trudy fan. That's totally full. I mean, she was a little bit annoying, so I will at least agree with you there. I mean, she's grabbing everybody's clothes. She's grabbing Julie's freaking dress and shit. I could understand why Trudy might get on people's nerves.
Yeah. She started at a 10. Yeah, she didn't have any subtlety. She shows up wearing the kid, wearing Julie's shirt. It's like, hold up now.
But what she said like to Jade, it was a little terrifying. It's like, oh gosh, that's like really aggressive and terrifying.
That's like it's super aggressive. It's one of those things where as a guy, it's one of those that would have been just such a weird situation to be in. It's like it's almost like you're kind of frozen, like you don't even know what to fucking say to that. It's like part of you kind of wants to be like, okay, shit, okay, let's go. But another part of you's like, whoa, wait a minute, like that was super weird and creepy.
Yeah.
I don't know about Trudy.
Weird.
I don't know about Trudy. It's a little sus. My own house in town, that would be ideal. Like that would be the most ideal situation. Like you mentioned, Ravener, there's so many people in both places, in town and Colony House, where even if you do choose town, there's a 99 probably % chance that you're going to be sharing a house with somebody else. You're not just going to get a house all to yourself. And that's why I feel like it never made sense that Sarah and her brother had their own house, just them two for all of season 1. Tien Shen and Kenny had their own house for all of season 1. It's like you see all these other extras around, all of these, like tons of extras. And you're wondering, it's like, okay, like 2 or 3 people each have their own house and like 40, 30 other people are all packed in like the last 2. Like it just didn't make sense.
Right. And then once Nathan and Sarah were out of that house, it went to Reggie and Paula. So it was still only 2 people.
That's what I'm saying. Where were Reggie and Paula before then? Did they just are they just respawning these people out of fucking nowhere? Is this like a Call of Duty game where doing respawns happen every time someone loses a fucking house? It didn't make much sense. And I know you kind of, this is where I always kind of say where sometimes you kind of just have to suspend disbelief in things like that. But I don't know. I'm just, the way I look at stories, I try to analyze everything as a whole. And even something as small as that, it did start to stick out for me a little bit. Like I just found like it made no sense that Sarah had her own house all to herself while we're seeing like literally 30 other people in this town that must be all shoved into 1 or 2 other freaking places. It just, I don't know. Little things bother me like that. I'm a big fan of, maybe I'm a stickler for continuity. Maybe I'm being too nitpicky, which is totally fine. I don't know. But yeah, my own house in the town would definitely be the most ideal for sure. But we got another for town. I'm there for Colony House if I'm with friends or family town. That's actually a good distinction as well too, because I feel like maybe people might make different decisions as opposed to if they're there alone or if you are stuck
Mhm.
there with a family you need to take care of. That might
Yeah.
impact your decision. So
Kenny
that's a good point.
did.
Like,
When
yeah,
Kenny was with his
yeah.
mother, he was not getting anywhere near Colony House. Now that his
Mm,
mother is gone and his father is gone, he was
yeah.
asking about the parties and everything.
Mhm.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, you guys aren't still doing those sex parties up there, are you? Um, but no, that's the perfect example of it. Where when you have a family, you're probably more inclined to choose the structure of the town because it's the closest thing to home. The closest thing that you had that you lost when you got here. Colony House is completely new. It's a totally new kind of setting. Unless you're getting stuck here like fresh out of college and you're just out of your fucking frat or something, Colony House is just a totally different setting. So yeah, if you're getting stuck here with a family you need to take care of, I imagine most of those people are all going to choose the town. It seems like just about everybody at Calling House are all people that are single or they're alone. So
Yeah, if
yeah,
I could get
that
a
that'll
talisman,
probably.
I'd do the root cellar. Honestly, I'd do 2 rooms and then a basement.
Ooh, the root cellar. Okay,
Yeah, think
okay.
about the property value.
Hey, maybe. The only thing that would make me weary about that though is it seems like the root cellar might be a potential destination for the faraway trees. I wouldn't want Julie popping up in my
Oh.
freaking living room out of nowhere. But it is a good spot. That is a really good spot though. The root cellar. It could be nice and cozy. You got the little living room area right when you first open it. Then you go to that first door for like a little kitchen little area. Then you go to that last door for your bedroom where the hidden room is. Yeah, I could hook that place up into the coolest man cave. Kidding me?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Shit, maybe that's what happened. That boulder probably was the security system. You just have it set so if somebody pops into that cabinet, the boulder
Boom.
falls on them.
Mm,
Yeah, and that's another thing.
interesting.
Like, we still need to find out who the heck that was in the root cellar that was crushed by the boulder. Like, who exactly was that fucking guy? Where did he come from? Um, Susie Greenberg says Cannibal Village. I suppose that's a possibility. I mean, yeah, we're wondering whether or not you'd go to Colony House or the town, but now that Cannibal Village is there, that's an option as well. I mean, like you said, Ravener, if you could get a hold of your own talisman, going to Cannibal Village might actually be not too bad. I mean, you got the whole place to yourself, so that might not be the worst outcome. I mean, I can think of worst outcomes at least. Maybe. Yeah, it seems like seems like town for the families. Colony House is more suited for single people. Yeah, it seems like that's the case. Very, very much so. And I could totally understand that. Again, having a family with you when you get stuck here, I imagine that's got to impact your decision as to where you're going to go. If I arrive there alone, I would probably still choose the town. But if I arrived there with my family, there wouldn't even be a split second where I would be thinking. It would be automatically town 100% every single time. If I arrived there alone, I'd probably at least think about it for a little bit, but it would probably still be town either way.
Yeah. Oh, I just thought about, yeah, between Cannibal Village and the root cellar, I couldn't do it because the running water would be too tempting. All the infrastructure and stuff, the
Yeah,
electricity and water.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
that'd be
good
tough to
point.
say
Like
no to.
yeah, the town has everything you need. It's got the running water, electricity. Like you got everything you need in town. You go to Cannibal Village, you're definitely doing the mountaineer frontiersman kind of lifestyle. But you get used to the trapping to living off the land kind of thing. And we don't even know if there even is decent game out there to hunt in those woods. Like we haven't seen a single deer, elk, bear. We've seen nothing to indicate that there's like decent hunting out there, at least not in a while. I know we got the goats and the chickens and all that early on, but those seem to just be getting thrown to them. They didn't really have to go too far into the woods to find all this livestock. But if you're living in Cannibal Village, yeah, you're gonna have to live off the land, and that's gonna be fucking tough in a place
Yep.
like this where you don't have a whole lot of natural resources.
Dig an outhouse. Ugh.
Yeah, yeah. Take a nice little porta potty, good old latrine pit, even. Yeah, man, it's yeah. Again, as nice as it might be to go to Cannibal Village and just have that solitude by yourself and super close access to all of to at least one of the biggest food sources right there with all the natural kind of food just growing around, along the lake, which might not be natural. Somebody might have planted that at some point. There are some people who believe Eloise planted that even. I don't know. I don't know. But I guess that's one other question we'll ask before we get ready to wind this thing down. What do you guys think about Eloise? Do you think Eloise could potentially still be alive out there somewhere? Or is Eloise dead and buried? Should we close a book on the Eloise chapter of Fromville now that we are getting that last scene that we got in this finale of Victor thinking, not being 100% certain, but Victor thinking that he buried Eloise, although he couldn't really tell because the parts were too small, which is just so gruesome in and of itself. And if nothing else, it
That's not
speaks to the
funny.
fact that yeah, and it speaks to the fact that Victor never returned to his mother's grave. Like after all of those years that he's been here, not once did he ever return to his mother's grave. Otherwise, he probably would have remembered Eloise sitting right next to him, but he didn't. He didn't
Yeah.
even remember Eloise existed, so he probably never went back to that grave. But what do you guys think in the chat? And what do you guys think on the panel as well? Is there a possibility that she's still out there? Did they leave it a little bit ambiguous with that dialogue for a reason? Or is it just another red herring and she's dead?
Man, well, there's enough of Megan to identify, and they had all night to work on her. It's
True,
very strange.
true.
I probably will. I'll go out on a limb, and I'm just gonna say that she's dead. DED,
Hmm.
dead Eloise. I
Oof.
have a feeling I might be wrong, but I'll say I just don't. Uh, I mean, how can they not? How can they not? Unless they really consider that to be enough of addressing the whole Eloise question. Oh no, she's there. I
Yeah.
think it's her, and that's it. Yeah, that is pretty light. If she actually is dead, they kind of just gave her the once over brush treatment and then
The
moved
little
on.
brush over it. Yeah.
But I'll say,
Good
on
point.
surface level, I'll say she's dead, so everybody else can be right when she pops up in season 4 somewhere. Maybe she's
You
married
might be
to the
right.
man in yellow. Maybe she's his
Oof,
wife.
well, maybe, maybe. No, but you could be very well right. I mean, I feel like a lot of us are hoping Eloise is still alive, just because just the way that they've set up the character of Eloise, they've set this character up very interestingly, where it'd be very kind of anticlimactic at least if they
Mm.
set this character up the way they did only for her to be dead the whole time. That'll be a little disappointing, but she very well could be, that very well could be right out of the From playbook where they're just screwing with us this whole time and she really is dead. What about you, PM? You think there's a possibility Eloise is out there still, or
Mhm.
is she dead and gone?
I would like her to be dead. I just want to close that chapter and let's move on, right? However, I don't think that she's dead. And Victor, being frustrating as always, told us twice that she's dead, but left the door open. And I think
Yeah.
that knowing Victor and his pattern, she's gonna pop up and she's gonna end up being alive. I just want her to already like get here and let's move on to the next thing.
I kind of agree with you there in terms of like whatever it is going to be, if she's dead or alive, like let's get to it already. Like I feel like they've been teasing this for long enough. They've been leaving it very ambiguous for long enough. If they really are only doing 5 seasons, then yeah, we need to get to a point where we start making these things a little bit more definitive. So whether she's dead or alive, I hope we find out pretty early on in season 4. Because yeah, that one line we got in this finale, it was not satisfactory in terms of wrapping the Eloise storyline up. I feel like they intentionally left it ambiguous. But who knows?
But that
Who
would also
knows
mean,
what they are planning?
yeah, for the
What's
purposes
that?
of for the one in, one out theory, that would also assume that since people started counting, that Eloise was, must have been counted in the if she's alive and in Fromville still. I don't know. I mean, I don't know when we started counting though, as people, like one arrival, like one person dies, one arrives, or four people, four people end up dying, four people arrive, that kind of stuff. So I
Yeah,
guess she might be already wrapped up in the count of the town count.
maybe. Yeah, if she's been there the whole time, then maybe there's one already accounted for. Because that's another thing where in terms of that whole scenario where people getting killed off on the show and then being replaced with new arrivals, we're uneven. We're still uneven as of the end of season 3. We got more deaths than new arrivals.
Right.
We got 4 deaths and 2 new arrivals. Can't really count Tabitha as a new arrival because her coming back to the town really just replaced the absence that she created when she left. So
Mm-hmm.
Tabitha coming back was just kind of setting things right. But we still have 4 deaths in terms of Tilly, Dale, Jim, and Tien Chen. We lost 4 characters this season. Now, we could have potentially had all of them replaced if the EMTs wouldn't have gotten killed, but both EMTs got freaking killed right off the bat. So,
Right.
yeah, we're down a few right now. So I wouldn't be surprised if season 4 did start off, or at some point in season 4, we see 2 arrivals. If they're following that theme, which they've been following up until this point, in terms of someone dying on the show and being replaced with
That's true.
a new cast member, we could
That's a good
potentially get
point.
2 more. Yeah, I guess we'll see. I guess we shall see. But final closing statements before we shuffle on out of here. And we will definitely continue to be diving into, of course, all things from season 4. And, of course, all things The King in Yellow and all of the similarities that it shares with From. Because I feel like we've only scratched the surface of all of the other similarities. So
Oh, yeah.
maybe PM would love to join us again some point. Maybe we'll do another one of these next week, and we'll
Oh
dive
my gosh,
even deeper.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They
I
were
have been
asking for a
invited
call in.
back.
They're
Yay.
asking for a call in maybe Tuesday.
Okay, we could do a call in. We can do a call in Tuesday. Yeah, absolutely. We'll do
We
a
got
call in too.
The weekend is chock full of watch parties. So tomorrow we have the Lord of the Rings at, I think I set it for 9 p.m. Eastern. Saturday you have the normal Saturday show, and then midnight Eastern, Betrayed King is going to be starting his Shogun series, and then
Yes.
Sunday, of course, we will have episodes 3 and 4 of season 1 of From.
Yes.
So big weekend for
Yes.
everyone. Everyone's welcome.
We do.
Pop in the Discord. Yeah, man.
No, I love it, man, and I can't thank everybody enough for all of the awesome watch parties that we have already held, and the ones that we are going on to hold. You, Ravener, BK, Kiwi, everybody who's hosted. You guys are all freaking rock stars. And these over the next few weeks, at least, the weekends are going to be very watch party heavy. Like Ravener said, we're going to be continuing the Lord of the Rings trilogy. We have the extended version of the Two Towers playing this Friday at 9 Eastern. As Ravener mentioned, he will be hosting that. Then Saturday, we are kicking off our Shogun, which I'm looking forward to that. It's been so long since I've seen any Shogun, and I really feel like if you're a fan of just well-written television, just incredibly phenomenal acting, even if you're not particularly a huge fan of samurais and Japanese feudal Japan culture as a whole, even if that isn't really your bag, I imagine you're still going to love Shogun just for the sheer production value of it. They're just the phenomenal acting, the phenomenal characters, the writing. Everything in that show is near perfection, even whether you're a samurai fan or not. So I'm looking forward to diving back into that. I haven't seen Shogun in a very long time, and of course, we will be covering all things Shogun season 2 and season 3 when those eventually come around. They have already signed on 3 seasons, and that's what I love about Shogun. Season 1 was so good that they've already renewed it for seasons 2 and 3. We don't need to wait to see if they're going to get a season 3. They already have gotten greenlit for 2 more seasons. I love that. That's how much confidence they have in that show over at FX, and I think they're very right to do so. But that's what we're going to be doing then, of course, Sunday, diving back into all things Fromville and seeing what other weirdness, what other new clues that we can potentially pick up on that we might have missed the first go around, especially now that we have the added new context of getting definitive answers at the end of season 3 with all of these new revelations. I get the feeling we're going to find a lot of very interesting things when we do our rewatches. So I cannot wait to dive into episodes 3 and 4 this Sunday night as well. We'll be kicking things off right here on YouTube at 8 p.m. Eastern with a pregame live stream. Then at 9 p.m. Eastern, we'll be diving into the Discord and starting the watch party. So definitely come and hang out for that as well. But yes, a big thank you to each and every one of you for joining us this evening. And a huge special thank you to our special guest, PM Philosophy, for joining us tonight. And yes, again, I would love
Thank you
to.
guys for having me. Thank you.
No,
I'm a huge fan of both of you. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to be so nervous talking to Jeremy.
you killed it.
I joined Discord to talk to Jeremy, and then I never sent him a message.
No, you took to it like a duck to water. So yeah,
Yeah, you
what,
did great.
I mean, the people that I always say this, man, is when you put yourself out there, that first step, the time when you put your hand up and say, hey, I want to talk, that is the hardest part. That is the toughest part, that first step. So you did awesome.
Thank you.
You did. You did phenomenal. Which is why I would definitely, again, there's still so much awesome and fascinating stuff to cover when it comes to the King in Yellow, Carcosa, Robert Chambers, Ambrose Bierce, Lovecraft. There's so much more stuff to dive into to look at all the similarities between that and From. So yeah, I would love to do a part 2 of this. Maybe next week we could do a part 2 PM. I'd love to have you back on the channel. You're more than welcome. And yeah, we will continue to unravel these threads and see all the other just vast similarities that are between From and the awesome not only Lovecraft universe, but the King in Yellow itself as well. So we will definitely be diving deeper into that stuff. And again, yeah, we'll probably do another one of these next week if you guys are up for it. And of course, that'll give everybody in the chat a little bit more time, or at least a whole week, to dive into The King in Yellow. If you guys haven't read it, I would highly recommend checking it out. It really is just such a fascinating read, and it's a much different read than probably most of the stuff that we've read, at least in terms of its structure, in terms of how these stories are told. How it's kind of separated into 9 different short stories, each one of them very unique unto themselves, but all kind of tying back to The King in Yellow. Really, really a fun read. So definitely check it out if you haven't already. You have a whole week to dive into all things King in Yellow. And we'll do another one of these probably next Thursday, if that's possible for everybody, if that works for everybody. And as you mentioned, Ravener, if the chat wants a call-in stream on Tuesday, we can definitely do a call-in stream if you want to do that, my friend. I am up for that. But yeah, big thank you to each and every one of you for joining us. If you guys have not subscribed to PM Philosophy yet, definitely subscribe to our channel. The link is in the description of this stream. And again, big thank you to each and every one of you. We will see you again this Saturday night for our regular scheduled Saturday night show, followed by the beginning of the Shogun Watch Party, and then we'll be right back all over again the following night on Sunday for the Fromville rewatch. And of course, tomorrow night, we won't be on YouTube, but we will be in the Discord live at 9 p.m. Eastern to continue the Lord of the Rings watch parties as well with the Twin Towers Extended Edition. So until next time, stay safe out there, guys, in this crazy world. Do not get pulled into Fromville or Carcosa. Watch out for the Yellow King, and we will see you on the next one.
Bye.